attack.
Hey everyone, how are you doing? So welcome on into the streams for Dawn of the Tiberium Age. Welcome. Hey, cheers for the follow there, Velversion. Good to see you. So yeah, today we're going to be having a look at some of the Dawn of the Tiberium Age mod, which is absolutely one of my favorites, I have to say, in the Tiberian Song series. It takes in a lot of inspiration from Tiberian Dawn and Red Alert, which is pretty cool. So we're going to have a quick look and see what the actual schedule is for today. Take a quick look through the actual game client, and then we're going to jump in to a call with Rampastring and Tiberius. Rampa's going to be playing through one of the more recently released campaign missions on hard difficulty, making it even more interesting. It's quite a difficult mission as it is, so we'll see how that goes. We'll have Tiberius in the call as well, so he's going to be chatting with us a little bit, letting us know a couple of insider things about the mod itself and a couple of opinion pieces on it, so that'll be cool. And then after that, the plan is to have a look at some co-op missions with the devs and whoever else is around at the time. So, as you can see here, this is the outline. So developer live stream and dev Q&A session, that's what's happening now. We'll be starting that off briefly, and then there will be a public game night starting from 3 PM GMT. So we'll probably have a quick small break between the dev live streams and the public game night. At that point we'll turn the streams back on and people can check out just some free-form multiplayer games. We can do some co-op, we can do some multiplayer PvP, we can do a whole bunch of cool stuff. But good to see you, Mangoes, thanks for dropping in. Just to briefly, for those who aren't familiar with the mod, the links are in chat if you want to access it and download it. But the primary thing to know is you can get it all from the ModDB page. You can see a bunch of cool screenshots, and we'll show off the gameplay now in a second. So all the information you need to access the game is up here, including links to some of the more recent updates. So all the changelog notes are up here. So quite recently in the latest patch, for example, there were some modifications made to the Nod faction. So they added in a couple of units like the Heavy Raider and the Illuminator, which are pretty cool. But the whole changelog history is here throughout the entire development of the game, so it's really cool. You're able to actually go back in time and see how it's progressed, which is amazing. You can get through a bunch of images, maps, videos, reviews, all the things that you would expect. One of the really cool things about this that I'm a huge fan of is this faction info section. When you go into it, you can actually filter between the 4 available factions in game, so GDI, Nod, Allies, and Soviets. But this will allow you to get a good understanding in terms of the tech tree in place. So if you don't want to spin up a game and figure out how to build something, you can just go straight into the site here. It gives you a full combination list, so what structures you need and what it lets you build. It also has the advantage of hovering over each of these individual structures to give you a little bit of information, including the role, what they're strong against, and what they're weak against. This is particularly useful for some of the higher tier units that you might not be familiar with or might not have come across before in the likes of Tiberian, Dawn, or Red Alert. So yeah, just so that you're aware that this resource is here. You can flick between GDI, Nod, Allies, and of course Soviets. So it's all here. All very cool, well put together. So props to the guys who are putting that in place. But what we're going to do now is hopefully hop into Discord and we'll check out how things are going there. So we currently, I think we have Rampage just got some random brutal game in the background. That's the noise and sound effects that you've been hearing. But we'll pop in over to that. So let me switch on over to this and this, and we should have a view on Rampa's gameplay. Awesome. And let me just unmute myself in the call. All the fun of live streaming. Cool. Hey guys, how's it going?
Yeah, hey man. Back.
Hey, so we got a few people in here. So this is the DTA Discord. People are welcome to join that as well. The link's in the Twitch chat there if you want to go check it out and see the raw point of view. We've got 2 of the devs in here. We got Rampastring, who's planning to stream some of the most recently added mission to the modification, Chainbreaker, and I believe he's going to do it on hard as well to put us all to shame. We've all been talking throughout the last week or so when it was released, having our own individual difficulties at different points in it, so it'll be really interesting to see how he does this. I know a lot of us are very excited to see it in action. I believe he's not feeling 100% either, so he'll likely not be on the mic for much. But it's good to have you here, Rampa, for sure, and thanks for agreeing to do this and show it off for the community. And we also, of course, have Tiberius, one of the other devs, who's opted to jump to the call to answer a few questions throughout the stream. So it should be lots of fun. Really looking forward to it. So whenever you're good to go, Rampa, we can hop on into the mission.
Yeah, did you already show the download links and so on?
Yeah, so I've shown so far the ability to download it. I haven't shown the main game client. If you want to briefly go onto that, you can.
Well, it is probably very obvious to most players at this point, I think.
Exactly.
Because it is, well, the client was first made for GTA and afterwards everyone else has adopted it, so...
For sure. It's very much intuitive. Like, there's a campaign section and there's the CNCnet online, which is pretty familiar across most of the Tibzone mods, right? So yeah, awesome. In that case, then.
A large part, I mean, what I feel has made GTA more significant as a mod is that we have been pretty much the mod that has pushed up the Tiberius and entry further, and basically the client is the spawner engine and so on.
Cool. That makes sense. So yeah, go for it.
I have to start mission there.
Awesome.
Can you see?
Yeah, we can indeed. Looks good. So yeah, allies are building a new harbour to strengthen their already heavily fortified island chain. Allowing them to complete it would make it very hard to assault the area afterwards, so we need you to strike it at once. Destroy the harbour and we'll send you an MCV that can be used to set up a base on the heavily fortified main island of the chain. Prepare sufficient force for taking control of other islands in the chain. Harvest all the islands for more resources and crush the allied fortification. Objective 1, destroy the allied harbour. Objective 2, destroy all allied bases on the islands. Conquer the different islands and expand your base on them to keep a steady income.
Yeah, thanks for the brief.
No worries. So here we can see, allies are in the process of building military harbour. It's under construction and vulnerable to an attack, and they have 4 cruisers defending it that are unable to retreat due to the threat of submarines. Attack them and take them in. So it's pretty nice start. So you end up with a couple of heavy tanks you can see here, a couple of Tesla tanks. You got the APC and you got Tesla troopers, a couple of V2 rockets. So people unfamiliar with this mod, it's a combination of Tiberian Dawn mixed with Red Alert assets. And one of the more interesting elements is how they've managed to balance it in such a way to make it playable for both multiplayer and single player stuff. This mission in particular, I'm not quite sure, Tiberius, have you actually finished this mission yourself?
I finished it on medium, and that was a nice, fun challenge for me. So hard mode is just madness for me. So I'm actually excited for this as well.
Yeah, big time.
It should be noted that a lot of our newer missions are set in what is called enhanced mode, which not only rebalances the originals but also adds new units in a way that hopefully feels like a natural expansion of sort of the style and the different doctrines of the factions.
Yeah, for sure. That's very cool. The fact that Rampa's going to put us to shame doing this on hard is going to be fun.
Very.
I think
he likes to do that.
yeah, for sure. I think one of the kind of tricky things with this map in particular, as we'll see, is the amount of different strategies you need to implement to get through it. So as it's kind of alluded to so far, and I won't spoil it, but the idea is that there's going to be a couple of different islands. So that immediately kind of leads the player to having to rely on not just ground troops. They're going to potentially see the use of some of the air units as well as some naval units too. And quite recently, with I think it's the most recent patches in the last couple of months, you've recently added in the ability to have the transport units via the naval stuff for each faction. So I'd imagine that was quite a challenging thing to implement, and I'll be curious to see what the plans are for that in terms of future maps. It'll be very, very interesting, and the impact it'll also have on the multiplayer side of stuff.
It's definitely up. So yeah, that's quite hard. Figuring out how I could achieve the same stuff in Rampastring.
Cool.
So yeah, this is indeed a mission that is very designed around the idea of combined arms. Like, you really need to use your full arsenal. And at least when I played it, I really felt that. So if you slack on like a particular thing, like your navy is really lacking, but you have really strong ground forces, that's not going to get you through. And I think that makes this mission very interesting and varied to play.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think I've got quite a interesting like, my background is primarily in TV and Red Alert, so my dependency on a lot of these missions is to be able to build the units that I'm more or less familiar with, and that will immediately get me killed because of over-relying on too much of like a ground army and not expanding out into what's needed. And here we have, it's actually a pretty cool trigger that's set up. You got the nice little airstrike coming in here to help you clear out the harbour itself. It's very nice.
Yeah,
I feel like, because well, I was really satisfied with how I actually made stuff and airstrike.
Yeah, it works quite nicely, and if I recall, for this mission we'll definitely see it a couple more times, so that'll be something to keep an eye out for. But making good work here. He's already managed to keep more of a starting army alive on hard than I ever did on normal, so fair play to him.
There is the difference in the most of the first faction, so meaning the amount of units is, there are way more units.
Ah, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
I still think actually want to make it very interesting. It's more like I want to feel surprising for the players or the units.
Sure.
Like surprisingly, but still very well.
Yeah. So here, engaging the cruisers with the land units, you want to try clear them up. It's a promising start, let's say. I think the first time I attempted this mission, I almost instantly lost the majority of my army before getting towards here. So there's a lot to be said in terms of having patience and going through these missions methodically. And I think maybe Tiberius, you'd have a better idea of this, but the majority of the single player missions tend to be more on the longer side, I would say, just due to the nature and the size of these maps. I would think maybe the average mission is like 40-50 minutes maybe, as opposed to the shorter like 20-30. I don't know if you might have any ideas on that, Tib.
Yeah, so the thing is that our maps are much larger than in the originals because we don't have the same limits. It is on the Tiberian Sun engine, so while we have classic looking assets, we can make maps in the size of Tiberian Sun.
For sure.
And yes, that of course provides us whole new opportunities both for multiplayer map design and especially mission design and having more objectives, for example, on a single mission. So yes, our missions are a bit longer and generally also a lot harder than the originals, with some exceptions. But especially Rampastring is famous for at least some very punishing hard modes.
Yeah. Like, I mean, he's making this already look a lot easier than it is to play, I can tell you that.
Very much so, yes.
Effortlessly. So here we're seeing some of the hovercrafts come in, it's pretty cool.
We should lately try to make him less punishing, but still difficult. I'm not sure how well I affect him.
Sure. I mean, it's hard to find the right combination between making levels accessible to brand new players versus trying to make them feel challenged and using the full arsenal of units you have. I think this is a really good map as well to just show the variety of stuff that you do require. And he's going for a save just in case. I appreciate it.
Can't blame him.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I try to, of course, make use of the difficulty scaling so that for medium and easy the missions would be a lot more approachable. And so, but for hard, I'd still go. I try to make them so hard that they are charging for myself, so that I'm gonna be like 100% sure that I can clear them easily.
Sure. I mean, anyone watching that's played any DTA will be more than familiar with how necessary it is to save. It's definitely a requirement. Another cool thing, I guess, to note for people who haven't previously seen this mod, because it's the amalgamation of TD and sort of the Red Alert models, you'll actually see some combinations of things like Ore and Tib on similar maps, which is pretty cool. Aesthetically pleasing. You'll also see some missions which will have cross faction play, so you'll have Soviets and Nod, you also have GDI and allies in different combinations, so that's pretty cool.
I want to ask on the chat whether there is a specific hour for instance with some PvP fights. Well, there is this schedule posted on our image that we have on for PvP. It's in about 4 hours from now. We will start our official game night, so then you can have all kinds of multiplayer matches, PvP and co-op and everything.
Yeah, for sure. So the schedule thing was I showed it a little bit earlier, but as we said, we're just kicking off here with Rampa showing off some of the single player first. Then we'll hopefully dive into a couple of co-op levels. Maybe Tiberius and Bida or whoever else is around will be up for that. And then we'll take a brief break, and I think 3 GMT was on the schedule for the multiplayer game night to kick off. So we'll do some more PvP and more co-op stuff then with the bigger community, which will be a lot of fun. Really looking forward to that. I'm sure a few of the regular faces will be around. It's usually quite a good community in terms of actually being able to get matches on CNCnet. I know it can be a little bit hit and miss with certain players, but for the most part, I think there's a looking for group channel in the DTA Discord. You can pop a message in there, and usually within 4 or 5 minutes, somebody's down to play a game, which is awesome, for sure. And so here you can see the enforcer units that the allied player has. So these are like the special tier 3 ones, right? I
Yes,
get
it's what we call an epic or a heroic unit. Same idea as some of the classics, Tanya, Volkov, stuff like that. The Mammoth Mark II from Tiberian Sun. So every faction has an epic vehicle and an epic infantryman.
for sure.
And of course, we try to adapt them to whatever fits that faction. For example, the Enforcer is kind of defensively oriented, so it's kind of a mobile barracks actually, and it has just an absurd amount of health. It doesn't do the same kind of damage you might expect from other heroics, but like just outlasting it is quite the challenge.
For sure, and you can see that here Ramp is using both Volkov and the what's it called, the Behemoth. That's right. It does this kind of area of effect projectiles that also have flame damage to it. Seems pretty powerful once you can get it set up.
And that's despite a recent nerf. It actually used to have longer range, and we found that it just, especially not, we're just too pressed by it because they rely so heavily on strength and numbers, and so when it had a bigger AoE as well as a longer range, it just deleted anything not threw at it. So we had to scale that down back a bit.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I am always curious how the devs go about trying to balance these units, because like the factions are initially so different. And I think on initial look, it was great to see some of the more basic things were already solved. Like it's quite a common problem, for example, with GDI versus Nod in say the remasters, that Nod tends to have all these vehicles that outrange GDI, and it kind of leads to these problems in the mid to late game. But in this, there's things like the additions of the disc launcher, let's say for GDI, which is kind of like an SSM equivalent, and those kind of considerations. But how do you guys go about trying to balance that, especially like the heroic units? Like how do you know it's fair for like a Behemoth versus a Enforcer, let's say?
There's a lot of stuff that goes into that, because we have to take PvP into account, we have to take co-op into account, and AI games and so on. And we also try to keep a balance between, the factions feeling unique and having their own sort of play style, but also having a fair game, and that can be quite a headache sometimes.
Yeah, I can imagine. I guess most recently there's been some major overhauls towards the Nod faction. Previously they had access to the microwave tank and the Ravager, but I believe that those are recently patched out in favor of the kind of what the community are referring to as the Batmobile vehicle, and of course the other tank option that they now have. I mean, what kind of led to those changes, I suppose? Was it a case of like once you could see the map playing out that the faction needed a little bit of changes, so time was spent into trying to rebalance it, and it kind of came to the conclusion that these new tanks were the best way to go? Or I guess if you've any insight onto how like that specific faction was chosen for rebalance, or why that was the case?
Yeah, so like I said, we really try to strike a balance between a fair game and the factions feeling unique, and not received a really big overhaul in the previous 1.19 patch, which, while it improved balance in terms of fairness, we came to feel that it somewhat stripped Nod of their identity a little bit. They became too reliant on, especially the microwave tank, as you mentioned, and sort of these slow, methodical pushes, which just felt almost Soviet in nature to us. And they were too built around that all of a sudden. So we decided that, and we'd also had some a little fan pushback on their epic unit. It felt a bit out of place in the game for people, and there were some devs that were also a bit on the fence about it. So we decided that, okay, let's just tackle it all at once and really buckle down and look into how we can learn from what we did, both in terms of keeping it fair, but also how can we do that and give not their identity back. I think we actually succeeded. I sure hope so.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. It's really cool here actually seeing Rampa use the missile subs in their deployed status as well to try and act as like anti-air there. It was very cool. Someone in the chat was asking, how come you opted not to use the different ground levels like in Tib's Sun since it's on that engine?
It just wouldn't feel right. Like,
For sure, I could kind of relate to that. Like, you really want to keep the aesthetic here of the original games,
and
I
the
think.
gameplay. It's not even only aesthetic. As someone who also is part of 2 tips on mods that do use the 3D terrain, it really impacts gameplay a lot, actually.
Yeah, for sure.
So it would not at all feel true to the classics if we had kept the 3D terrain.
For sure.
And yeah, that's really why.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. And I guess a question I might have, just seeing the mammoth tanks coming out here from Rampa, how do you find the variations between the Red Alert and the TD mammoth tanks?
Well, so the Red Alert one, the Soviet one, is actually stronger, but it's even slower than the DDI one, and it's a bit more expensive. So it's really just, I mean, the Soviets are a bit of an extreme. They are really just all about that raw power.
Sure.
That, crush them. Whereas DDI are very balanced, and not just in terms of game balance, but like they like to go for these sort of very multi-purpose in-betweeners in terms of stats and performance.
Sure.
And speed is very significant in GTA, especially in the PvP multiplayer. Speed can really win you the game a lot of the time. So it actually is a significant difference. So they really do feel different to use.
For sure. I have to say I am enjoying seeing that Rampa has to struggle a little bit here against the massed Air Force. I lost so many points to this campaign mission at this point. Just getting absolutely overwhelmed.
Feedback about that air rush, how well it has killed many players.
Sure.
And
including me.
Despite all these anti-air defenses, I also lost a refinery full of cash, so that's 200 credits just gone.
Sure, it's tough.
Yeah.
I think, do you guys rebalance the older campaign maps at all, or do you tend to just sort of release it in its state and then maybe at a later date you'll do a variation on it? So I'm not overly familiar.
We actually do update them, or at least we try to. It can be a lot of work after a big rework like we've just seen with both 1.19 and 1.20.
Yeah.
So it might be a bit of a gradual process. Like we might not rework all the missions at once if we want to get the rework out in a timely manner.
Sure.
But we do try to actually keep our older missions updated. There might be exceptions where we'll do some map-specific code and sort of tweak the balance a little bit so the mission works, but we try not to make it so jarring that there's a complete disconnect between the multiplayer and the single player.
For sure. And is there functionality, I guess, in the back end of the game, if a mission, let's say, was developed around like the micro tank or whatever, that's now been sort of not deprecated, but isn't kind of the main usage in the faction? Like, is there still the ability to use that in predefined missions, or is it the case that if the balance happens to remove a certain unit, that's no longer accessible for campaign play?
No, you can, and this is part of the engine, so other mods do utilize this as well. You can actually put what's called any code, which is the code that regulates unit stats. You can put that directly into a map file.
Awesome.
We'll try not to get too techy here, but
sure.
You can make exceptions as long as you keep the units in the game code and keep them as part of the files that contain the units. Then you can actually make missions and maps very, very different from the main game.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I'm curious why Rampa here is opting to get an MCV and send it across the ocean instead of maybe an engineer to capture the structures across the way and build off that.
I guess the MCV just feels safer. Like with the engineer, it can just easily go wrong and be subject to some surprise. Like even just a single aircraft comes in and snipes him, and you don't really have that problem with the MCV. Plus, the MCV lets you, just as with multiple factories letting you build faster, you also get like your actual buildings up faster when you have multiple MCVs. So I guess there's a...
For sure. It's also, I guess, good
It's
insurance.
a pretty good answer.
Yeah, like it's good insurance too, in case your main MCV gets sniped or you lose that first island. At least you're not totally screwed, right?
That as well. I mean, you saw the air attack just now. If that hits the MCV, then yeah, good luck.
Yeah, that'll be a reload.
I'd say transports can be a bit tricky in this mission, as you saw. Probably saw the landing here. It almost it was a pretty dangerous situation. Had I reacted slower, they could have taken out my CPA.
For sure, I've lost many times to that on this mission.
One thing that's worth noting, though, is that so we actually recently introduced some unique transports to some of the factions, and the Soviet one is armed.
That's right. So, it's got like a turret or something, right?
It has two cannons in the front. It's not turreted, but it can shoot enemies in front of it. So it actually can somewhat defend itself. We felt that was appropriate to sort of the raw power identity of the Soviets that I talked about earlier, and at the same time not got a transport that has a little more carry capacity, but it sacrifices some health because they rely so heavily on strength in numbers. So getting 5 units across might not really mean the same to them at all as it does to, say, the Soviets or GDI.
For sure. It's a really cool level of consideration, like to make those things faction specific. 'Cause it is tempting, like, to just make a universal, here's your APC unit, and it can go on water. Everyone gets the exact same, it functions the exact same way, and that kind of leads to lack of diversity and lack of replayability, I guess, in some ways, between factions. So it's really cool to see that.
Yeah, it really was a matter of like, we started to notice, especially the thing with Nod, was really noticeable that 5 units in a transport just really wasn't much to them. So from there we kind of went.
For sure. Like, if you're comparing that, it's like, oh, here's a transport with 5 light tanks versus here's a transport with 5 mammoth tanks.
Exactly.
It's like something doesn't seem a bit fair here. Yeah.
So it was really a matter of, we looked at that and we said, okay, so we really have an excuse to both prove game balance and faction diversity. So that's just a win-win. I mean, let's do it.
Yeah, for sure. There is a question coming up. I think I might have asked this before in the DTA Discord about potential reuse of the remastered graphics for this mod. Now, I think I would say that you'd have to translate it all into voxels, and there's probably a whole bunch of ownership issues and problems with that, and a huge amount of work. So it's probably not on the development.
Not at all.
Eyesight, yeah.
Because I don't want to sound like food, but I think a lot of people just don't realize the technical difficulties of actually doing that.
Yeah.
Because they're not the same engines.
Sure.
Like I said earlier, this is actually on Tiberian Sun's engine and not the original Dawn and Alert engine. So
for sure.
Porting it over and then sorry.
No, it's probably a case similar to like those who would have played Tiberian Sun would have seen some of the included old graphics from Tiberian Dawn in some of the first missions. I imagine that they were kind of used as a jumping off point for the creation of this mod, so focus on the in-game assets that already exist and modify them accordingly to work. And then a lot of work, I imagine, would have went into then trying to get the Red Alert assets to match that. I imagine that would be how it kind of kicked off. I don't know if you're aware of how that process went.
I think Bida is actually the best one to answer that, since he started off alone, actually. Yeah. Bida, you up for that?
Bida is quietly just observing.
I think he's muted.
Sure.
Okay, so what I know is that Bida actually started off alone, and I'm pretty sure he told me that one of the things that started DTA off was actually that these older assets and the simpler game logic, I guess, was just easier to work with.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if we had to port it to like actually doing things in 4K, you also have to consider the fact that we have original units.
Sure.
and that those would need to be remade in 4K. And I think our SHP artists would cry just at the prospect.
There's only so many hours in a day, right?
Yeah,
And I think there's a lot to be said for maintaining the classical aesthetics of the original games too. Like it can be almost too tempting to focus too much on graphical development over gameplay, and I think this modification does a really great job in terms of keeping that nostalgia factor while also trying to manage balance and add new units and make things relevant and adjust it to the Tibsun engine in really interesting ways for sure, and making like decisions like you said earlier about not necessarily having the varying terrain levels and stuff like that, because it would impact too much on the gameplay and the original aesthetic. So it's really cool to see.
that's another thing. Like some of our units and some of our original stuff actually relies on Tiberian sun logic. The GDI epic unit, for example, and also GDI's the disc launcher. That's pretty much just the disc thrower's projectile logic from Tibsun. So we'd have to cut stuff out. We'd have to remake every single map and mission from scratch. So that's 10 years of development.
Yeah,
so,
it's easy to forget how long it's been, right? Like there's so much
I
work.
think this gameplay here shows the hard part of the mission, because well, I have to focus on naval fighting here on my main base here and here at the side base, and there is just a ton of stuff going on at the same time.
Yeah, like I said, you're making this look incredibly easy.
So someone in the chat is asking who's better, Tanya or the GDI Commando?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that's a big difference. I think maybe Tanya shoots a bit faster and
Tanya shoots a bit faster but has slightly lower range.
yeah. So at least in DTA they have pros and cons, like a lot of our other balance decisions.
For sure.
So I can't really name one that's straight up better.
Yeah, I'm trying to think like the like some of the elite tier units, like the Exo Commando, I guess, is pretty powerful for GDI, and trying to compare and contrast that across the factions is probably difficult with the other guys' similar units at that tier. It's
Yes,
yeah.
because if you try to compare the Exo suit, which is very much a sort of a direct fighter, to something like the Behemoth, which is essentially a super artillery, that's hard to. You really have to look at how they synergize with their faction rosters and what they do to overall game balance.
For sure, like there is very much a heavy emphasis here on leveraging the advantages of your faction to win, which is cool.
Very much so, yes. It's why we also actually sort of advise new players to maybe stick with one faction for a little while, just because it's easier to learn that way than have to constantly turn everything upside down when you're.
For sure, like I've been playing this mod for about 2 months on or off, a bit more, and it was very much the case of like just picking GDI and sticking with that and trying to figure it out, because there are quite a lot of intricacies to it. Like you might be tempted to say, oh well, it's based on the old TD1A engines, and the sort of leveling system for units and stuff isn't complicated, but it starts to evolve quite a lot, especially as you say when you're trying to leverage the differences with those higher tier units, and trying to like deal with mass cruisers in this example from the Allies while trying to keep your subs doing the right damage, or potentially building V2s to hit them from long range, and all these kind of interesting balance dynamics, which is a really fun problem to try and resolve as a developer. I can imagine
it can be, yeah, but it's also what makes the game fun, of course. And it also makes development fun, because you have to come up with all these sorts of crazy varied ideas that sort of fit the factions. You can't really just go with one theme or one kind of approach. So it's a mix of, it's difficult, but it's also what makes it fun.
For sure. It was really cool there. We just saw Rampa sell his harvester on the repair bay, so that functionality is still in it, which I wasn't aware of. That's awesome. Awesome to see.
Yeah, I only have a single mine here to harvest from, so I have 3 harvesters. It's too much for us.
Yeah, it'll
So
just
well,
wanna. For
I
sure.
think we're seeing right now like the kind of of insane multitasking that just puts Rampel on another tier.
Yeah. So he's forced in a position here to defend his dock in the back, while he's also like using the beam to try and.
I was actually very close to just losing my base while the elite enforcer was here in the middle of the challenge.
Yeah.
That was actually, I was thinking I might have to load here, but I
Yeah. We really saw the enforcer in action there. Like
it just doesn't care. It's just like, I'm going to the center of your base. Deal with it.
it does not give a so it really lives up to its name of like it just forces its way into your base or your formation in an open fight and just causes havoc.
And of course the behemoth does friendly fire damage too, right? So if the enforcer's in the middle of your base and the behemoth attacks it, you're going to do a lot of damage to your own structures, right?
Yes. And that's another thing with some of the heroic units, they really do depend on you micromanaging them properly. It's the same with the exosuit, which uses the Tiberian Sun railgun logic, so that hits everything in a straight line, and that will include your own units. So if you put it in the middle of a formation and try to just kind of deathball the enemy, then you're actually gonna get sort of punished for that.
Sure.
We try to make the heroic units actually require extra effort, but also rewarded. It's the same with Volkov. You see here the Soviet epic infantry. He can kite, which is sort of hit and run enemies. He has a long range and he's fast, but he's not that durable. But if you can micromanage him well and do that hit and run, then he can be absolutely devastating.
For sure. I think Mark was asking a little bit about the harvesters and ore trucks. So can they mine from both Tiberium and ore? And the answer to that is yes. It's all universal. I think the interesting question around the mechanics in this would be how did you guys manage to balance red alert harvesters and TD harvesters, because in the original games the red alert harvester immediately unloads all of its ore on the refinery, whereas the TD harvesters actually dock and they take a significant amount of time. I think it's a middle ground in this, if I'm right.
It's the thing is that it's a global setting, so we can't have them perform differently anyways. That's simply not possible.
Sure.
So what we did was opt for like giving players the choice of, do you want TD style or do you want red alert style harvesting? That's a game option in the client.
For sure, which is cool, which is great to have as well.
Yeah, we wanted to give players the choice, but yeah, they will perform equal. As someone said, it's only visual, the difference.
Yeah, which is great. Like, it's a bit of a nightmare to try and balance that out otherwise.
I actually speak from experience when I say yes.
Yeah. I believe it.
I believe our standard Tiberian Dawn setting is still a bit faster than in Tiberian Dawn.
Sure.
I think so, yeah.
That's understandable.
So yeah, I think it could be said that it's like Danku first said, it's a middle ground between the Tiberian Dawn and Red Alert.
For sure.
Yeah, I think that's why most go for the sped up Tiberian Dawn option. At least from my experience, that tends to be the norm when playing online.
Yeah. And I guess you've made some of the maps. You both have made some of the maps in the CNC Net launcher for this. What are the decisions that you make in terms of the actual assets you use on a map? Like in terms of stuff like, oh, will I use Red Alert or will I use Tiberian Dawn or will I try and stick to one tile set over the other? Are there any key things that you think might stand out if there are potential map developers watching and might be interested in making maps for a game like this that you've learned over the years or you think might be beneficial for people to know about?
So aside from some recreations of some of the original maps, I think we pretty much from the get-go developed its own style for GTA. Most maps really will have a mix of the assets mixed in with some original stuff that does look fitting, at least in my own opinion,
sure.
But is actually original assets for GTA. And the same with the way assets are placed and mapping. There's both individual approaches to it, like Rampastring and I don't map exactly the same way.
Sure.
But also, yeah, I'd say DTA really has its own style. But we really do leave room for individuality in the mapping process. So as long as a map doesn't look too barren or incomplete or has massive balance flaws, it's a candidate.
Sure.
My first map was it's the one called Rocky Ridge, which is very simple, but it plays well.
Nice. I think you might have a better idea in terms of the different super weapons available to each faction, just to go through them. Like, we can see in this map that there are chrono vortexes being used on Rampa throughout, which are provided by the chronosphere super weapon. I'm not sure what the other super weapons are, if you happen to know them offhand.
I do. So Rampa, being the absolute masochist that he is,
isn't building
actually gave the allies both their old nuke from Red Alert and the Chrono Vortex in this mission.
Just for good measure, because it was too easy.
Well, in Red Alert 1, the allies used nukes, so it was actually a bit of statistic decision here. Like, I like the moral grayness of the allies, like they are the good guys, but on the other hand they can also use nukes and all kinds of these weapons, so I want them to use both nukes and the Chrono Vortex to make them more morally grey in this mission.
They're the good guys in inverted brackets.
So going through the super weapons, another case of like we wanted uniqueness but also balance. So pretty much what we started off with was, of course, the sort of the vanilla super weapons, so all except GDI using a nuke, which is neatly balanced, but it started feeling a little boring.
Sure.
And so with 1.19, with all the massive reworks, we thought, I mean, why not take a look at that while we're at it? And so the Chrono Vortex, it pretty much activates instantly. Like the damage will hit instantly, but it's very gradual. You can see it hangs around for a while. So it's great against buildings or wearing down a big enemy sort of death blob of units, but it's not good for like sniping very durable targets, for example, which the ion cannon is great for GDI's.
Sure.
GDI sort of ion beam satellite laser thing, which is also it's pretty much I tend to call it the delete button, because you really just press and it goes and
can it one shot a Conyard?
Not quite, but
almost,
it can one shot a lot of units, and it just hurts like
for sure.
Yeah, so that's more for sniping priority targets. It tends to get used a lot in like on people's epics in PvP.
Sure, that makes sense.
Whereas the nukes are more like they're delayed, but they do a lot of damage in a big area. So
yeah, it's interesting. Again, it's all about leveraging the different factions' advantages, right?
Yeah, and of course, like we took. Of course, our start-off point was the original. Like the nuke pretty much functions like it does in Tiberium. The ion cannon as well. It looks a little different, but it's the same mechanic. The Chrono Vortex is really our original addition, but it was based or inspired by an effect that you actually saw in Red Alert Aftermath, which was that if you overuse the chronosphere, it would cause these
Chrono Vortexes, right?
Chrono Vortex, these storms of something rip in space time that just wreak havoc.
Insert lore here, yeah, sure.
Yeah, insert lore here, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it was Bida who particularly thought that was just cool looking, and
yeah.
And we kind of like the idea of, okay, very big AoE but very gradual. We don't have anything like that, so yeah, it fits, and we like that it had sort of a foot in the original lore, so it wasn't just us pulling something out of our behind.
for sure, and like I could tell that, having like played Red Alert and seen it. I was curious when I put down the chrono sphere structure for the first time. I was like, is this gonna let me transport units? And then I was pleasantly surprised to see the chrono vortex effect. So it was pretty cool to see it. play out. So
Yeah.
it's nice in that way. It's a good example of how like it's taking something new but still kind of being considerate of the lore and the original intent of the mod, right?
It was admittedly also born of a place of we really missed the Chronosphere because it's just so iconic to the Allies, you know.
Yeah.
But the Chronosphere transport logic just isn't in the Tiberian Sun engine.
Sure.
So we really wanted to find a way to weaponize it, and this was just a gift from Westwood.
What was the it's kind of a bit on the spot, but like what would you say was the most challenging thing with trying to work with the Tibsun engine and keep all this stuff the way you guys wanted it, I guess? Like was there anything particularly difficult to try and set up mechanically, like a specific unit, or maybe trying to get something from the original games working that was just not easy or straightforward to, like a weird achievement, because like there's so much work that's clearly gone into this, and like I think it's really undervalued, like how difficult it actually is and how much time it takes to put these things together. Being able to like point to an example of, hey, look, this is a thing we actually spent a lot of time on that people might not know about, or might not appreciate necessarily offhand. Yeah, put you on the spot. If nothing comes to mind, it's cool too. Don't worry about it.
It's more like disclaimer here. I am a bit of a newcomer to staff.
Sure.
Compared to Beta
and
or
Rampa.
Yeah. So I mean, I think my best answer would be that Beta is just an absolute engine wizard with Tiberian Sun. What comes to mind is that sometimes we run into some quirks of the engine when designing a unit, and we kind of have to find a way to work around that. For example, the artillery has caused us a bit of trouble because we found out that the projectile logic they used gave them an extra cell's worth of range unintentionally. So like so many other TS models, we just run into the engine's quirks sometimes.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
I would wager, and from what I recall, this has I have somewhat been told that one of the big challenges was the terrain, like flattening Tiberian Sun and making it.
Yeah.
The cliffs also, actually, I've been told by Beta, were a bit of a headache and used to be buildings, technically, that would just block your movement before we had the ones we have now.
Interesting.
And the same with the way you spawn into the game. That was also a later addition. It used to be more random, like in Tiberian Sun. So, but
cool.
in terms of getting this tipped on RA feel, I think definitely the terrain and terrain in general, especially how cliffs and such work.
Yeah.
We also have a workaround for some of the big multi-cell bushes, where we put down the bush and then you have to put something over it.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
It isn't actually passable, because otherwise you just pass straight through.
Sure. So I haven't worked with a lot of the Tibsun map editors, for example, but I had touched this one briefly, and that was very much pointed out to me that in the editor you can select like a specific tile to make a section of land unpassable, which is a nice thing to be able to do, and I'm sure it can be modified and used in some creative ways as well. I'm sure it has been. Again, I haven't played through all the maps, but it's really cool to see those kind of solutions for these problems coming in. And as you say, Bita, Rampa, and yourself are all kind of seasoned veterans in the modification space, so it's great when you're all able to work together and get such great end results, for sure. Community just benefits from it. Even if they don't realize it, they're like, oh hey, this cliff reminds me of that game from 20 years ago. Well, meanwhile there was like hundreds of hours put into trying to figure out how to solve this problem.
Yeah, pretty much. One thing I also particularly enjoy that we have in our terrain is, you mentioned this impassable tile, but we also have one that actually lets only infantry pass through.
Okay, cool. So kind of like the I don't know if you played Dune 2000, but the cliffs there have some infantry-only sections you can go up.
Yeah, it's like that, or like the trees in Tiberian Sun, which I actually think that was the logic that got used for that.
Sure.
But yeah, so what you can do is you can sort of block off an area from vehicles, and it can be a cool way to give infantry more of a
power.
place, or yeah, some extra power. I, for example, have designed a map where there's actually a long cave that runs between the players who are otherwise separated by a large mountain.
Okay.
But
okay.
you can make surprise attacks through this cave with your infantry. So that's
Nice.
something you have to keep in mind, and brings a little extra.
Do you have the
surprise.
Do you have the name of the map if people want to go check it out afterwards?
Glimmering Bluffs, but come to think of it, the first one who did it was actually someone called Train Station, brilliant mapper, who did it on a map called Underwater Passage, because the caves there run underwater.
Sure. That's real clever.
It is. It works nicely. It really. Yeah, it does give infantry some extra power, and I'm actually excited to see its use now that the late game infantry of some of the factions has been buffed a lot.
Sure. Which is always a tricky thing to try and figure out, especially like as we were saying earlier, like the general duration of these maps' difficulty tends to be a bit higher because it's leveraging the advantages of the Tibsun engine. So trying to account for that and making like early tier units viable for even longer missions can be tricky. But I think, like you say, doing things like the infantry only passable tiles is a really smart workaround for that.
Well, for missions, you can of course also limit the player's available tech. So,
Sure.
for example, this mission, Rampa has actually barred you from using the tier 3 ship of the Soviets because its range is very long and would break the mission.
Yeah, I went to a skirmish after the first attempt of this to just get used to the Soviet tech tree and noticed, hey, there's this really powerful tier 3 unit I could be using. Why can't I
Yeah.
play with this? And it's like, oh, right, this is intentional design. He wants it to be harder.
I would say a player to utilize those missile subs, to do more tactical strikes with naval units instead of just entirely leveling the whole map system.
Nice.
Yeah, and so it's the same with, he's also blocked the use of Chinooks, who can
Yeah,
airlift units,
yes.
because he wanted to use the naval transports.
Oh, yeah, good
but-
point. Yeah.
I feel like this is very much in line as well with classic Command and Conquer design, where
Yes.
of course in the campaigns you'd have sort of a gradual unlock of your tech. So you could imagine that if this were a campaign, this would be somewhere late in the campaign, but still not where your full tech tree is unlocked.
For sure. I was really surprised to see that Chinooks in this modification can airlift units, kind of like a carry-all. It was something I guess I didn't expect offhand. I was curious what the decisions around that might have been, if it was for balance purposes or just something that was tried out.
So that is one of the many workarounds we had to do exactly for balance or gameplay reasons, because initially we didn't have the naval transports. They're an
Yes.
RA1 logic that wasn't originally in the engine and only recently got patched in because we happen to have an actual professional programmer who got a hold of the Red Alert source code, of course, with the remasters.
Was this Flare, was it? Or Flame? Or someone else?
No, this Rampastring is a real programmer.
Oh, of course. No, I assumed that everyone here is, for sure.
No, I'm probably the least tech savvy of the bunch.
Yeah, but when the bunch is like, veterans, I think that's still something to be, proud about, the achievements that you've made towards contributing to this mod and other mod. Like, you worked on a couple of other Tibsun mods as well, right?
I do, yes, 2 others.
Sure.
Tiberian Resurrection and Fading Dust.
Nice. And they're going to be featured later on during the
Yes.
anniversary celebrations. Awesome.
So yeah, but back to the Chinooks thing. So that was a workaround to allow this sort of Red Alert style island hopping kind of map.
Cool.
And we've actually sometimes debated if we should keep it in or maybe make it TDI exclusive, like in the in Tibsun, but we still haven't really
decided.
found that to be. But you're right that it might not always feel intuitive to people. And I've actually one of my missions is sort of a tutorial on doing that.
Like there is
there is
a mission, right?
If we would change it at this point to be GDI only, it would break many existing multiplayer maps, for example, that were designed with these carrioles in mind.
Yeah, that's one of the problems.
Sure. Sure.
I also want to add to the earlier discussion about engine, like implementing Tiberian Dawn and Red Earth features in the engine. There's some Tiberian Sun logics. The Tiberian Sun engine is missing many logics that the earlier engines have. So, for example, chrono tanks, we cannot implement them just the exact same way. So then we usually have to look for some kind of creative solutions for it. Like, how can we use these assets in a way that they still will feel a lot like the originals. So, and in a way that makes sense for a game design and balance and so on.
For sure.
So here's actually a landing. It's taking out my harvesters.
Yeah, this might be a fun fit.
Well, one example is the chrono tank. For the current iteration, it actually reuses the subterranean unit logic from Tiberian Zone, like used by the Devil's Tongue subterranean flame tank. So when it disappears, it actually goes underground technically and then arises somewhere else. So
that's cool.
We used to simulate the chrono logic from Red Earth one.
Nice.
Anyway.
That's really
Yeah,
smart.
we really just gave the dig down and dig up a new animation to fake the teleportation. I think it works well, but
yeah,
it
no,
is
it
a
does,
workaround.
for sure. At this point, Rampa is no further than I've ever gotten on this mission. I think he's secured 3 of the enemy's isles, so he's in a pretty good position here. I think. I have no idea what's left in the Fog of War Shroud. I've never been able to get past it, so I'm really curious to see what he plans to do now. And it's also cool to see I think the auto-saving stuff is new, right? In one of the latest patches?
Yeah, I just implemented it like 3 or 4 days ago, I think.
Nice, nice. And is that like a frequent...
There's these mission autosaves.
Nice. And is it a frequent...
Every 3 minutes.
Every 3 minutes. Nice, nice. That's a nice way of doing it, because it can be tricky figuring out if it should be before certain things trigger, or when certain things trigger, or if it should be time-based. Time-based probably makes the most sense. And here we see the MiGs coming out. Again, Rampa's making this look very easy.
Yeah, I think at this point he pretty much has won.
Yeah, I think I could actually just wipe out the allied base in here and I would win the mission that way. But if you're curious about it, I think I'll go and conquer these areas first.
Yeah, just for good measure.
Yeah. Because I already know that I'm going to be watching this back to learn how to approach this properly.
I also added a couple of small islands like these that have armor crates in it.
Oh, cool.
I like adding small Easter eggs like that for a player to just find out.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a nice touch. There's something I noticed in I was playing one of the multiplayer maps. I forget which one it was, and I destroyed. I think it was one of the Dawn of the Tiberian Age maps. I destroyed a church, and it had a crate inside of it specifically. So is it viable for those multiplayer missions to have those like crates in specific locations or civilian structures, or was that some fever dream I had while doing stuff for this last couple of weeks?
No, it was in Tibdon. Often churches, for some reason, had crates on them. And we have done that in several missions. For example, the mission I mentioned earlier, the one that sort of teaches you the Chinook logic, also has a depot where you have to break some crates in order to find some caches of money.
Nice, nice.
Some of my multiplayer maps have pre-placed crates on small islands or in little nooks and crannies as well. I think some of Rampus do too. So yeah, we do use that.
Nice. That's very cool. It's a nice. I think the church.
In multiplayer, you also have to think of the game balance. Sometimes I'm not a fan of for example, such if there's a lot of pre-placed crates in some locations, because if you are new to the map and playing against someone who has already played it before, you don't know about the crates the other player doesn't. It can actually be a significant advantage sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. And it's one of the other interesting things with the size of the maps and multiplayer, in that some of the maps have been created in a way that I haven't played all of them, but I believe there are maps that would like favor it. So you could have like a 2v1 setup, whereas the one player on their own will actually have access to, you know, better Tib or gems versus the two other opponents who might only have access to, you know, standard ore or Tiberium. So doing that kind of map balance, I imagine, is a lot of fun, but it's very tricky if you're trying to make it like a competitive 1v1 experience, let's say, in multiplayer. And in those situations, crates and things probably make a lot less sense. But it's really cool to see the huge variety of maps and effort that's gone into it for both the multiplayer perspective and also the single player and the co-op perspective. But there's a few different game modes enabled on this for multiplayer. The only ones that I'm familiar with are the default one, which is like PvP, and then there is also the co-op missions. But there are other options as well in there, isn't there?
Yeah, there are co-op missions, which we will be jumping into after this, actually.
Sure.
To show off. So yeah, that I think that's actually one of GTA's big selling points, if you will, is that we have a lot of these co-op missions, and they are very well designed. I'd say so, at least. Ramp made most of them. So yeah, it just adds a whole new level, really, to the game. The original Command & Conquer games didn't have this kind of co-op play, and it's just really fun to try and beat some of these missions with a friend.
It is.
Also, despite my people tend to like praise my skills a lot, and so I still tend to enjoy co-op more than PvP. And yeah, we have focused on that a lot, and we have also noticed that people actually play way more co-op in GTA than they play PvP. So yeah, I
for sure
definitely think that I actually find it a bit strange how when people talk about RTS, they tend to think of competitive play. Like I think in general there would be more potential to invest in the co-op experience.
For sure, I definitely agree with that. Like it was the one thing that jumped out to me after I'd first heard about the mod and tried the online stuff, was actually jumping into some of the co-op missions with other players. And like you have missions where like you start off and there's two commandos and each player, you know, controls a commando and you have to go take out a base. And it's just, there's a real nice level of satisfaction when you're doing your own single player thing and winning, but when it's two people trying to get a joint objective and they're like actually doing it successfully, or if one player is suddenly behind, they can make up for it and like try and go through it. It's just really awesome, and it's definitely a highlight. And I was honestly, from my perspective, I was really shocked I hadn't heard more about this mod before I did, because it hits all the perfect things for me in terms of you know, adequate balance between factions. It's got a huge amount of map support. You know, you guys are constantly working on it and pushing out updates very frequently. And there's a question that Marsh just asked there about are there any immediate plans for the future of the game, or is there any specific upcoming things now, I guess, that the nod patch is kind of been released? Is there plans to have a look at a specific faction to change stuff up, or a plan to look at trying to distribute more co-op maps, or is there anything like that in the works that you'd like to talk about?
Well, we have active work in progress content. For example, I am working on a co-op that is very near completion, actually, that will really push this cooperation element and players having to communicate to both stay alive. So that will hopefully get tested and released soon. I know Rampa has some stuff in the works. I have a single player mission concept that I'm looking to implement. So, I mean, you can always add more content, right?
Yeah, for sure.
We do also have some design stuff that we're talking about, but nothing is really
Yeah.
decidedly planned or in any way finalized or work in progress in that. So I don't really want to get into that
Yeah,
just yet.
of course, of course. I mean, I've only been around playing the mod for the last couple of months, but like, how frequently would you say patches tend to drop on this? Because from what I've seen, it's like at least, once a week, if not once every 2 weeks, kind of a situation, if not more. There's a nice crate in the church. But yeah, I'm curious, like, how often would you say on average that patches tend to drop for this?
Oh, it varies a lot.
Yeah.
We're usually very, very active around the big patches because there might be little tweaks and hot fixes that need doing. So there's usually a lot of small stuff trickling in after a big rework like this.
Yeah.
We do have periods of where there are a few months where we're not really releasing anything, but usually that's because we're working on new content, and if it's a long while, it's usually because we have something big in the works. I think 1.19 took a year and a half to really finalize.
Wow.
Yeah,
We had some small
it's
content
that
patches.
time.
Yeah, we had some small content patches in the meantime, but yeah, the big stuff probably drops once a year or twice a year. Like we had a big naval patch recently as well. But yeah, I think we are pushing out bigger content patches at least every other month or so, I'd say.
Nice. Oh, it's
It's
definitely.
probably, that would say it's about once every 2 months on average.
Nice. No,
Yeah.
it's definitely been at least very active from the moment I've been on it. And like I say, the GTA Discord always has people talking about balance or trying to figure out how to do what Ramp is doing here effortlessly. I think once this patch dropped, like I was immediately trying to record some gameplay of it, but I just couldn't get my head around multitasking between the naval, air, and ground units while trying not to lose islands worth of resources at the same time. It's quite
I
involved.
actually have a couple of well-designed things I want to point out in this mission. Like if you played the original campaign of the Red Alert 1, you, especially the Soviet side, like the final mission, and so you know that there is constant repeating reinforcements, like ships, cruisers, and destroyers get sent against you. Like I kind of like those kinds of surprise elements sometimes, but in Red Hours they often feel a bit unfair for me because you cannot stop them in any way. They will just attack you constantly from off the map, and even if you run out of resources, you can harvest all of the ore on the map and destroy most of the enemy bases, but the reinforcements will just continue. But for this mission I took a different approach. The enemy gets scripted reinforcements. From here, the air attacks are scripted, and then here where the ship attacks, and from the south camp, the naval landings are also ship attacks here. But those scripted reinforcements actually stop when you have taken out this and conquered the islands for yourself.
Yeah, it does seem a lot less hectic at this point.
Yeah. So, like, I wanted to make it so that the enemy actually becomes weaker as you progress, and for it not to be overwhelming in the beginning, they are actually not all activated at once. Like, the main enemy base gets active the second you deploy your construction yard, but then there is a delay of a couple thousand seconds before this base starts sending out attacks, and then there's also a slightly longer delay before South Islands starts sending out attacks and so on.
Nice. Yeah.
So
it was good to see. Like, I think you went for like the top left island first, then the bottom right, and then the top right.
So yeah, I basically the difficulty is increased gradually as the mission progresses until you manage to take out the enemies, and then it becomes easier.
Nice. Yeah, no, it's very good. It's a very good map, and it does force you to use like absolutely every aspect at your disposal, which is nice.
I think it's also worth talking about your approach to resource management in this mission.
Well, before I hop onto resource management, I also have to say that I like, well, I tried giving the player many options for how to approach things, like the nukes here, and the islands here are very exposed, so you can actually use ships to take them out, or you can do airstrikes, or you can land on them, and also here there is this big scary defense line with enforcers and turrets and artillery and everything. But you can actually avoid it by doing a landing here and then attacking base directly if you want to. So, then about resource management, I gave a large bunch of initial resources here, so once you have landed you can harvest from it for a while, but there are no replenishing resources aside from the single ore mine. So that kind of forces the player to expand to the islands and conquer them before you can actually take on this defensive line safely.
And from what I understand, it is very much inspired by Red Alert's approach to mission design.
Yeah, Red Alert had a lot of these missions that had a lot of resources pre-placed on the map, but they do not grow back, so I actually felt a bit inspired by it while designing this mission. Like, I had actually forgotten about it until I replayed the remasters last year, because in Tiberian Sun and most mods, in most maps and missions, there are many constant sources of income. Like there can be around 2 or 3 Tiberium trees where you first deploy your MCB in a mission, and so there is not so much of a need to expand as I found there was in Red Alert, and I found it kind of interesting. Like, it felt that while in Tiberian Sun and most derivatives you can take care of your economy just by building more refineries, Red Alert 1, it forces you to expand more before you can actually have a steady income. So I felt it added a bit more challenge to the economy management.
It also forces you to not play so passively. It really is a matter of a case of offense being the best defense in a lot of cases.
Yeah, that is too, and that I also liked. And in this mission also, I felt it was a necessary part in trying to promote the combat arms approach. Like, instead of just going and conquering this island like it would have endless resources, it is actually beneficial to attack and take the northern and southern islands first. So you get more resources to harvest.
Yeah, I think that also does result in...
You actually have to bother with naval combat.
I think that also results in, you have to make a well thought out army composition and micro it, because you can't just get to that critical point of where you have like 40 mammoths and you can steamroll any sort of thing that's thrown at you.
Yeah, that is also true. And
Sure.
also, Danku, when you said that you were a bit shocked that you had not found out about PTA, I feel that, well, you are not the first person to say that, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it's because, well, we are often so focused on the development, and none of us are really like PR guys.
Sure, you're busy making it.
It is more fun to develop the mod than it is to write news posts and such, and while we view it, it's not something that we have typically had a lot of time to invest on.
For sure. I think hopefully a few more people will, I mean, after this week anyway, we'll check it out. But there's also a good community from the recent re-release of the original TD and RA in the remaster format that I've mentioned this to quite a bit, and hopefully they'll be interested in trying it out after seeing some more of the gameplay.
Yeah, I hope so too. And
it is
I think PR has also been a challenging thing for us, because while we actually have a very large player base, especially online, I think we are the most popular Tiberian somewhat on that is played online, looking at online numbers. And actually, I think we are the second most popular mod on CNC net overall after Mental Omega, which is basically, well, it could be, when we look at popularity, it would might as well be an official Yuri's range expansion, so it's way out of our league. Yeah, still many people have not heard of Armored. I think it's partially because of the graphics typical style, like
Yeah, maybe there's something in terms of like for the likes of Mental Omega and things like that. When I first came across them, it was primarily just through. I think it was probably through the CNC community site. I think it's listed on there, or a very few select number of mods are listed. But maybe it's something that can be engaged with in terms of, trying to get a more perspective, not just on Dawn of the Tiberius, but on a lot of the mods that have been done and highlighted, especially during these last 2 weeks, just to make people more aware of them.
yeah,
Across the
I
board.
think it's a nice event for that the current Tiberians on 22nd anniversary event.
Sure.
And well, adding onto PDA, like we can post some pretty screenshots of maps, but they are not usually probably considered pretty in the same way. Like mods that are based on the three-dimensional terrain and large,
Sure, sure.
like these pretty assets and lighting and so on. I feel they usually get more attention from screenshots than we do. And that kind of limits our exposure.
Sure.
I do think your Opus Magnum Buoyant City is a bit of an exception, though. That
Yeah,
map is
but
pretty.
there are some exceptions. But in general, when we post a screenshot, people might see it as well. There's Tiberian Brown and Red Alert one, and nothing really special of interest. Like
Sure.
there's too many mods that are graphically more flashy. But on the other hand, there has also been well, I feel that while we typically don't get as much attention from posting screenshots and such, we have our own very loyal fan base, like and that shows up in the online numbers. Like our overall player base might be smaller, but the people who are fans of PTA typically play it more than fans of other mods do. I think there's a trend like that.
For sure.
It's visible.
Yeah, no, it's great. Like anytime I've hopped into the CNC Net lobby, it's very much like, as you say, it may not have as many numbers necessarily as others, but there's always a consistent list of names that are playing it, and if you want to jump on and play a game, quite often, if the devs aren't around, there's at least 3 or 4 members of the community who are happy to hop on, which is great to see.
And it actually hasn't been very rare to see there have been many times over DTS history where we have actually had 20 or sometimes even, well, our peak has been 40 simultaneous players, I think, but like reaching numbers of 20 is typically something that happens every winter.
That's awesome. For sure. And like, would there be would DTA organize things like events around the holiday seasons and stuff to try and promote peaks in activity or anything like that?
I've actually done that many times, and for that I also have to thank Peter here. I guess I'm not sure if he's listening, but he's in the chat. Like he has organized game nights for us.
Awesome.
For the past year or a couple, I think.
Cool. That's definitely something that I would look forward to seeing in the future for sure. Especially around, like you say, like the winter, Christmas period, people have more time off and more time to play, so...
I think it's also that the better, well, when it's summer, people like to be outside, and then in the winter, they like to be inside and play games. It's
Sure.
It's a general trend in CNC Net and has been for many years. Like when we watch the online numbers, they are always lower during the summer than they are in the winter.
It's interesting. It's yeah, I mean, here the weather is always terrible, so it's not a huge factor for us, but I can see why in some of the nicer countries across Europe and America and elsewhere that people might want to actually go out and get some sun when they can and wait till the colder months before hopping on CNC Net. But it is cool and good to note that there is a solid community there who are consistently playing and are always up for giving nice feedback. And the devs too for being so cool, and congrats, you did it. Easy.
Yeah, thanks.
Only
Yeah,
68% though.
yeah, the mission efficiency actually makes no sense in Tiberian Sun at all. You might as well just ignore it, like
Sure,
DTC.
sure. But no, that was awesome. So you managed to do it on hard in about what, an hour, 20 minutes? So 60, 70, 80 minutes?
Yeah, I could have rushed the enemy base faster, but I wanted to showcase the map
Yeah.
and some design decisions and chat a bit.
For sure, for sure.
If I rushed it, I could have probably done it in an hour, at least.
Sure,
Uh,
sure. No, that was awesome.
yeah,
Thanks.
I'm glad I didn't need to load even once and could just complete it in one go.
Super jealous, as I'm sure are half the people on this call who have been trying this mission and struggling on even easy and normal. But it was really great to see that, Rampa. Thanks very much for showing it off. I'd say we can maybe take a 5-minute break if you like, and then we can come back if you're still around, or if
Let's do that. I could also take a break of 2 minutes and then we'll look into playing co-op, I think.
Yeah, sounds good. So we'll take 5 minutes. Tiberius, if you're around, you can hop in for some co-op action too if you want.
Yeah, love to.
Anyone else?
Let's do that.
I think it's probably better if we get as many of the actual devs playing who will be able to demonstrate the factions a little bit better than myself. Who's that?
You want me there?
We want you.
We want you. Yeah, hop in the lobby.
Of course, it would be good if there's still someone around watching the chat and replying to questions and commenting and so on.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's take a 5-minute break and arrange co-op after that.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I'll hop back in about 5 minutes, guys. Thanks for hanging out. Okay, so I'm back. That was a really nice. It was really cool to be able to talk to both Rampa and Tiberius about some of that mission. He managed to complete it on hard, which is very impressive, even while being able to chat about the game too, which is awesome. Some cool insight there from Tiberius as well about some of the game's development and aspects around that, which was really nice to have. So next up we're going to do a co-op mission. Check that out. So there's going to be, I think we'll do a 3-player one if we can, 2 or 3-player one. Depending on who's around, we'll jump into a lobby and we'll show off a co-op campaign, which will be really nice. So yeah, let me. I'll just bring up my DTA overlay, which I have behind this. There it is. The Discord chat off. Again, big thank you to both Rampa and Tiberius for hanging out, doing that. I like to see Laiki in chat too. Thanks for answering those questions, much appreciated. And for everyone in chat, throwing their questions our way, hopefully you managed to get to them. If you have any questions about the mod that weren't answered, feel free to forward them on and we can send it to either the DTA Discord. Oh, it's Flame, okay, that's nice, Laiki. I didn't realise that. That makes sense. I had a feeling you're one of the devs, but I wasn't sure. But that's really good to know. So yeah, I'll have a look. We'll see if we can get a lobby going. I think the question's going to be who wants to actually play it. We'll see who's up for playing. Flame, Rampa, Tiberius. We'll stay in the main menu, listen to some of the nice music while we wait. For those who haven't seen this game before, I guess it's actually worth showing. If you go into new missions, these are all the included single-player missions. So Toxic Diversion, I've actually played through this. You can check it out on my YouTube. I live streamed it. It was a lot of good fun. Definitely recommend checking that out. There's a couple of these classic mode missions too. Under Siege, Sarin Gas, Enhanced Mode campaigns. So there's a tutorial to get used to all the different units, which is cool. It came from Red Alert. Very much I'm pretty sure this is a remake of like the Ant missions from Red Alert 1. Creeping Destruction as well from the Soviet campaign. And a whole bunch of Enhanced Mode missions. So there's 3 there for GDI, a couple for Nod, a couple for Allies, and a couple for Soviets. Including Chainbreaker, which was the one that we just seen Rampa beat on hard mode. And then if you go into skirmishes, you can see that there's a huge amount of maps currently baked into the game. A lot of 8-player maps, a couple of 7-player maps. It's the interesting thing with this, as you were saying earlier, in terms of balance. You can have uneven factions, so you can have like a 2v1 or a 3v2, and the way that the maps are balanced, it's in such a way that it favors it. So this is an interesting 7-player map, there are a couple of 5-player maps too. Tib Gardens 3, interesting. A lot of familiar names, Tib Garden Redux. There's also a White Acres, I think, in here somewhere too. So very reminiscent of Green Acres. Here it is. I think Rampa made this one. Yeah, he did. So there's a lot of familiar kind of map names that you'll see. A lot of good artists too. You got Flame, Rajox, Adius Turu, Chronoset, James Bond, Drive. As you said, Rampa's made a few of these, as has Flame, I think, has made a couple of maps too, if I'm not wrong. Tiberius, as you'd mentioned earlier, and a few others. So there's plenty of cool maps involved in this. And then, as we were saying, the CNCnet tends to be fairly active. If the players aren't around, you can usually ping in the DTA Discord and be able to get people to join you fairly handily. And anytime I've played online, it's been a relatively straightforward experience. I think we've only ever had to change the tunnel. I think once there was a crash at some point, but that was it. Aside from that, I've played like, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 missions online at this point, which you can check out again over on the YouTube. I've got a couple of VODs up with that if you're curious how it pans out in a co-op mission or in a 1v1 mission or something similar. Yeah. I'm muted on Discord. I should now be unmuted, but
There
I
we
can't
are.
hear anything. Hey,
Yeah,
guys.
there you are.
Awesome. I could see icy mangoes. It lit up from my screen, but like they weren't talking. I was like, what? Cool. But you guys can hear me now, yeah?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's fine.
Awesome. Cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show my my own game client on the actual screen, and I'll just keep the Discord chat open in the background. If that sounds good. So who's down for playing? What's the situation?
Rampa will be hosting a game for you and Flame to join, and he will pick a 3-player co-op.
Ah, cool. And you're cool to comment over it a little bit, Tiberius, as well. You're
Yeah,
happy
absolutely.
enough? Awesome. Cool.
Absolutely.
Cool. We will wait for Rampa to fire that up. Yeah, thanks very much again to both Rampa and yourself, Tiberius, for hanging out and talking a little bit about the game, especially for the last couple of hours.
That was really fun. So thank you too, and thanks to all the listeners,
Yeah,
watchers.
for sure. And I'd love to get a few more of these streams in future too. Be awesome. Am I going to need to hide my screen to put in the code? I probably am.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Let me hide this.
I posted the password in our internal channel.
Perfect. Let me just say this out loud as I type it in. Bad habit.
Okay.
So RAMPA. Cool. Awesome.
Let me set up my stream and get ready. Okay, audio. Microphone.
So I guess we'll try the Canada East tunnel server since
Stable? Sure.
we have 2 Europeans and 1 American here.
It's me, the troublesome American.
There's always one.
So we have here it shows the list of our co-op missions. We have 8 co-op missions for 3 players in total.
Okay. We saw a bunch of the Allied and Soviet stuff. Would it make sense maybe if there's one for GDI Nod?
I'd say pick Operation in Barachiel. That's a good one, and it's a GDI.
This is a good one. I've actually done this one before.
Okay,
This is-
well, let's pick that one then. We'll do. We might be able to do hard, but it's
Yeah, let's not.
Yeah.
Let's not give ourselves too hard of a time to get through it. I'd say Mangoes, if you want to hop on for the next game, and just for this one, we'll do myself, Flame, and Rampa, because only 3 players. If that sounds
yeah,
good.
we can do that.
And there I am. I just installed it, updated, because I was checking is everything, nothing is missing. And checking to start my stream too.
So yeah, this mission is for 3 players. So
Okay, there are 4. Okay, going to leave, no problem.
yeah, you can come back for another mission after this one, maybe.
Yeah, no problem.
Cool. Thanks, Mangoes.
No problem.
Yeah, I'll go with the Cyan GDI. Why not?
I guess I'll pick position 3.
Okay.
and head for the southern village area.
Cool. I guess I want to go between the green tip and the blue tip section here.
Yeah, you might actually go for the blue tip then.
Sure.
Will you guys ready up?
Ready.
You can't even do it on like call with it. People not readying up. Awesome.
So, do you guys actually, is anyone watching my stream? Can you actually see the game window instead of the client?
I'm currently just looking at.
Yeah, I see the game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
nice.
just what is showing the game.
Yeah, good. Go take out those flame tanks as soon as you can.
Reinforcements have arrived.
Yep.
And also try to preserve your starting units.
Unit lost.
Right.
Unit lost.
Because you can use infantry to counter the stealth tanks.
Unit lost. New construction.
Just quickly
options.
stop barracks and
Construction.
So what this mission is that they have to
New
protect a
construction
nearby village
options.
from Nog. So
Building.
if too much of the village is destroyed, they will lose.
Construction complete. New construction options. Building.
Yeah, I think it's 15 buildings, right?
Ready.
yeah, 15 buildings.
Unit ready. Unit
Should be
ready.
doable. We have Rampa. It'll be fine.
Unit ready.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's,
it's on medium, so it will probably be a
New
bit on the east side.
construction options.
We'll see.
Building.
Watch Rampa solo on this.
Yeah.
Construction complete.
And the AI actually here does some flank attacks like these. It tries to go for the southern buildings and it can strike from the top to attack the civilian buildings that are on the back line, so to say. That if the players do not pay attention nor come
Lost.
do such a flank attack and take out the civilians from behind, and then you can lose the mission that way.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I lost the first time.
Construction.
Yeah, so
Silos.
while this mission is not very hard in a traditional way, like there are not all that much enemies thrown at you,
Unit lost.
the enemy's flank attacks can make it
Unit ready.
much harder, at
Unit
least initially,
lost.
Yeah.
if you are
You might
not
notice here that
Complete.
you might notice here that the non-chemical warriors are actually able to pretty much corrode armor and pretty efficient against tanks
Unit
and DK.
ready. Unit ready.
Yeah, even in the original
Unit ready.
Tiberian Dawn, I'm pretty sure Chem Warriors were super strong against vehicles. The only problem though is they were very squishy.
Yeah, whereas with the recent patch and their new model, we actually made them uncrushable.
Ah, nice. So similar to the static troopers.
Unit
Or the
Exactly,
shock
yes.
troopers.
And we also,
funny art.
Thanks, Armstrong.
and yes, we also gave the shock trooper model that should
New construction
sort of highlight that or
options.
make it apparent from the visual standpoint. Because we have had some new players be a bit confused about that. Because he just looked like a normal infantry.
Oh, he's coming up top.
Recon up top.
Go catch him.
Your harvester is under attack. Unit lost. Building.
It's gonna be funny for people watching the level of gameplay from me compared to Rampa. It's pretty good.
Unit lost. Building.
You're doing well.
Construction complete.
I need the silo crawl towards the tib field in the back.
Yeah.
And you can use hotkeys too, right? The Z and the
Cancel.
control Z. So Z will let you put down the
Construction
structure,
complete.
control Z will let you do the last
Not
one.
deployed here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those
that's
hotkeys
what
are
we-
very useful.
Construction complete.
Yes, that's one of the advantages of being on the Tiberian Sun. better hotkeys, much better pathfinding for
Unit
units.
lost.
Well, the pathfinding in Tiberian Donors was largely, not entirely, but largely fixed by community mods, but yeah,
Construction complete. Your harvester
there are
is
still
under
some
attack.
issues with it, even with CFA patch and
Building.
my
Yeah.
more quality of life improvements for Red Orange man.
Your harvester is under attack.
Ah,
Unit
right, yeah.
ready.
But yeah, if given the choice, I'll still take the Tiberian
Your harvester is
pathfinding.
under attack. Unit lost. Unit ready. Unit
There's a
lost.
lot of guys in that team.
Unit lost.
I'll bring over my medium things.
Unit lost.
You flame might not
Building.
less a bit much.
You might have noticed the flame tanks also have a new custom animation and
Unit
quite a bit longer range.
You might want to sell off that weapon factory, yeah.
Unit ready.
Orange is flame, one of
Why
our
are they all
Our
killing
base
me?
is under attack. Unit ready. Unit lost. Building.
I should have built a third refinery.
Unit lost.
Oh, hi, Flippy.
Unit lost.
The guy in the chat tilted on Flippy. He's a YouTuber as well, and he's actually made some maps for us in the past.
Oh, nice. I'm like focusing, trying not to die. So bad.
Run, flame.
See the exo parachute
Ah,
No.
trying to keep us alive.
Unit ready.
You're doing a pretty good job of it.
Good to see Hydra in the chat too. Good to see a Hydra.
Flame, bring your MCV to my... Okay, never mind.
Thank you. You might want to put down some advanced guard tower. That's really good.
Sure.
Very versatile. Oh, there goes your Tony. Never mind. I guess.
Ready. New construction.
You might want to cancel those tanks and make a new MCV.
I moved my MCB down
you
to
moved.
safer
sorry. I
pastures.
didn't notice that. I looked at the chat for a second. I thought you lost it.
Unit lost. Building.
Okay, let's hope this AGT is really good.
Unit lost. Unit
Well, this
ready.
didn't go as planned.
Unit ready. Unit lost. Unit ready. Unit lost.
Did buy you some time, but I think you're just getting well to the point.
Ready.
One of the units you're being attacked by now is actually one of the new additions of this patch, the Heavy Raider for non.
Unit lost.
I did see it. I think it's dead.
Terminated.
Rip. Okay, take two.
Okay, so, well, I guess Flame was left a bit too alone here, fighting against the enemies, so that did not go very well from that part. Let's retry, I think.
Sure.
Yes.
Non
Right.
is very much ferocious, Mangoes.
Yeah.
That
Sec, I'll go get some water.
Sure. But yeah, that was pretty intense.
well, it is still a Rampastring mission.
This is true. This is true.
Woke up at like 7. Check Discord. Was like, what? You guys have already been streaming for an hour?
Yeah, we're living in the future, remember? Yeah, streams. So that is, yeah, that's pretty true. Or even worse, both.
Yeah. Nothing worse than a bunch of stealth tanks in the back of your base and just getting assaulted with bikes in the front.
That's that can be very effective in PvP. Distract your enemy with a frontal attack or with some bikes zooming around and then hit him in the butt with the stealth tanks.
Yeah. No one ever. Stealth tanks are basically the Spanish Inquisition here, right?
Yeah, they really are.
But yeah, there's a good.
Yeah, no, the rockets to the face usually doesn't feel good. I'll give you
Usually,
that.
I mean, yeah.
You don't say.
Okay, let's hope this one goes better.
Okay, this is the one.
We're gonna try not to die.
Yeah, try. This is the real authentic experience of how it actually goes playing a DTA now.
Reinforcements have arrived.
Okay, so thank you. I think if you grab the blue a bit sooner and then start helping Flame out to the left,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Reinforcements have
sure.
arrived.
Yeah, one thing is also of significance here is that infantry can be really useful in this map, so you don't have to pick up all the way until you can actually do some useful things.
Sure.
And HET's advanced guard towers, you get them from the radar, so you don't have to take up all the way for them.
So I think if I put my MCV towards the back and then build HETs, I can build off his structures, right? So I can build HETs off.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
New construction options. Construction complete.
Rampant denying the deploy there.
New construction options.
Oh, I wasn't
Construction
even paying
complete.
attention.
New
No, I
construction
know.
Options. Building. Building. Unit ready. Unit ready.
I'll just put these on guard now so they don't just sit there.
Lost. Unit ready.
By the way, just for good measure, is it Danku or Danku?
You're right the first time. Danku's good.
Unit ready.
Danku, okay.
Unable to
Making sure.
comply. Building in progress. Unit lost.
Comm center.
Building.
I'll get the AGT before I walk back in.
Might be a good choice.
Unit lost.
Yeah, putting on 1 or 2 could really
Construction
help Flame, I
complete.
think.
New construction options.
And I need
Building.
all the help I can get.
And then this advanced power is actually worthwhile to build. The originals is just
Construction complete.
not cost effective.
Unit lost.
Yeah, here it's the advanced power plant, which is as much power as the regular power plants while costing well,
100
yeah,
less,
a bit
yeah.
less.
Unit lost. Building.
By the way, I'm sorry if anyone heard a loud scream earlier. I accidentally
Silence
found my
needed.
girlfriend.
Our base is under attack.
I didn't at least hear anything, so no worries.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
Sorry.
Is she okay?
Yes, absolutely. Just really saying not too much.
Construction complete. New construction.
There's no such thing as too
options.
much nod.
Building.
Yeah, you're right.
Unit
I thought we were supposed to be GDI here.
Unit ready.
Dang. That's why we lost.
We picked the wrong faction all
Makes-
along.
Construction complete. New construction options. Unit
I think last time I played this map, the power suits ended up being absolutely vital.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Unit
it is
lost.
very important, especially when the resources are running out.
Unit ready.
Yeah, that's the thing about the epic units is they're immensely
Unit
cost
ready.
efficient.
Yeah.
Still micro tempo.
Harvesters under
Yes.
attack.
And especially if you can get them to a lead and you're not me, then they can really
Unit lost.
make the game for you.
There's a flank.
Wasn't there one game where you use like 7 exo parachutes or something?
Your harvesters
Yes.
under attack.
I don't know, I have this curse where as soon as my power suit gets to a lead, it dies.
Unit
Like it'll do
ready.
fine and then it gets a lead and then all of a sudden it just gets murdered.
This is going a lot better.
Yeah.
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 So I have my piracy.
Uh,
What's a good army thing to go for?
Maybe some rocket launchers and putting down a sensor
I'm
array.
getting flanked.
Unit ready.
Wait, I don't have a weapons factory.
Oh wow, they're going straight for the air.
Building. Unit lost. On hold. Unit ready. Unit lost. Building. Cancelled.
Teabag.
Lost. Unit
Well,
lost.
Mango, each player pretty much has a starting field, but this being a random mission, expansion is all in the long run.
I try to design most of my missions so that expanding is important in the long term. Either to win or sometimes even to just to survive.
As we saw earlier.
Yeah.
Especially. Yeah. No, I do think it makes them more
Cancel.
dynamic, so to speak.
Building.
Yeah. That's my
I guess one thing we didn't mention was the fact that you can harvest the debris from killed units and structures.
Oh yeah, that's the thing kind of unique to DTA as well, is that destroyed units and buildings will leave basically scrap metal that you can then harvest to recuperate some of your loss. But of course they can also block you repositioning a building, so
Sure.
or yeah, putting down a new one. So it's double-edged mechanic.
I think one can pretty much compare it to Tiberian's on turn deformation, except that you can remove and harvest it or shoot away the scrap metal in GTA, so it's not permanent.
Yeah, it's a real smart idea.
So-
I've had situations in some in one or two PvP games where it ended up blocking my crawl, and I was not pleased. But it was my own fault.
Yeah, we've all been there. Play DTA regularly.
Even playing DTA if you're not triggered a little bit.
Yeah. It is something you sometimes have to take into account with map design though, like build space usually has to be abundant enough that one patch of scrap metal doesn't like ruin
Yeah.
your
Like you don't want like
your
a
raid.
choke that's only 2 tiles big or something being the only way in and out of something in case it just gets blocked out.
Yeah, that, but also just general build space, because if you have a very cramped base, something gets destroyed, then that is temporarily just like you can't replace that building. So if you lose something vital, you're really screwed.
I'll go with a 4 here to get some luck. Is it the same value roughly as regular Tiberian?
They are the same value, but full loads of both give you 700 credits.
Nice.
Yeah, it's basically gray ore.
Nice.
Without control here.
We're just gonna
Building.
We tried to make the Orcas more useful.
Cancel.
They were getting outshined a little bit by GDI has an epic aircraft. The A-10 Warthogs are built
Is
for
under
GDI
attack.
in this
Our
market.
base is under
That's
attack.
right. They are pretty cool.
Ready.
I think Orcasen are in a good place in PvP right now, but well, against the AI they tend not to be as effective, I think, because the AI, well, it has a tendency to build a lot of anti-air units
Sure.
Yeah.
and SAM sites all over its base.
Building.
Yeah, the A-10s are
Okay, here we have another AI flank attack. Very small one.
the A-10s are pretty cool.
Ready.
So like for people who haven't seen it before, basically they give you the option to get the unit that drops the airstrike from the HLT. And it does
Thank you.
3
I-
hits.
I think you need to move south to the chip field below Rampage if you want to stay alive.
Yeah.
Cancel.
Because that blue does not leave.
Unit lost. Building. Construction complete. Unit ready. Building.
Yeah, I mentioned to you earlier that you've done a few maps, even a mission for us actually. Single player mission, Curfew Breaker.
Building. On hold. Cancel.
His artillery hurt quite.
Your harvester is under attack. Insufficient funds. Your harvester is under attack.
I don't really see looking at the DTA chat on Discord. I don't think there is some massive issue with how the aircraft ran. They tend to go for well, after expending their ammo, they'll go back to airfields or helipads to
Your harvester is under attack.
replenish that ammo.
Your harvester is under attack.
Yeah, it would be a lot worse if they just landed wherever they were, but
I actually messed up my micromanagement here a bit, so they landed. I made them land accidentally. I misclicked it again.
yeah, that can happen, but generally I've never really found it annoying.
I think oh, I didn't get this. How did I not get that?
Yeah,
Shooting
Krabby,
right at it.
that's just the AI being
Your
the
harvester is
AI.
under attack.
It's not the norm.
Your harvester is under
Yep.
attack. Your harvester is under attack. Building.
You might want to retreat with your exo. Send it to the repair bay.
The model for the heavy raiders is pretty cool.
Flame is no longer due. Yeah, luckily.
Not? This is news.
Not directly pole, but you can actually, if you make sort of a triangle of waypoints, you can have them sort of do that. With one of the points being on the helipad.
Unit ready.
I built an MCV and I'm sending it up to the
Your
blue that you
harvester
just
is
cleared out
under
right now.
attack.
Nice.
Here is a laser corvette.
I got it already.
The designs for the GDI and NOD naval units is pretty fun. In a good way. They're super interesting. Like having the ability to use those laser corvettes is. The first time I came up against it, I was terrified. I was like, why is there something in the river
Scary,
shooting
actually.
me that sounds like a like a bad time?
Okay, foul.
Oh, there's a
That's-
cyborg to the left of you. Thank you.
Our base is
The
under
guy
attack.
firing the green blobs. But yeah, the ship designs was actually one of the things I was also very impressed with when I first played GTA, was how they felt like such a natural extension of their factions.
Flame, I think there might be stealth tanks after your 80s, yeah.
Yep, there is one. But I got distracted by a... They killed it. Oh, there's another laser corvette.
Insufficient funds. Unit ready.
Let's do this.
Unit lost.
Yeah, the Sea Shadow does have a cool factor to it.
On hold. Cancel. Construction complete. Unit ready.
Yeah, one interesting thing was the node, designing the node maybe, because the node actually has no naval units in any game.
Yeah, that's
No,
right. At
it
least
should be.
GDI had like the gunboat and the hovercraft,
Yeah.
but not at like nothing, right?
Unit ready.
Yeah, that must have been a fun design process.
Yeah, like how do you even go about? We need to give nods some naval units. How are we gonna do this?
It's the Scarab, we basically sort of bikes how they are fast and can perform flank attacks and so, and we want to recreate that in the inter-naval arsenal as well.
Yeah, I think once again, at least this is also a bit the case with the units I've been part of designing, is that
Construction complete.
again it's a matter of going off of okay, what is the faction's identity and what are the key
Primary
factors to
building
their visual
selected.
style, and
Building.
you
Unit
try to
lost.
find something that
Building.
fills the role you need, but also touches on those factors.
Construction complete.
Yeah,
New construction.
it's a pretty
options.
good
Building.
description.
Unit lost. Building. On hold. Unit
How are you
lost.
doing, Dank?
Sparkling economically, it seems.
Construction complete. Unit ready.
Yeah, there's a super assistant.
Unit lost.
What, there's one of those left in here? Oh, right, yeah. Yeah, so the,
It's fun, but foo.
Unit ready.
yeah, so what we're talking about is, yes, them used to be not epic unit, and two of those iterations of it are apparently left in the mission.
Unit ready.
Yeah, intentionally so, because well, there are not. I read them as defensive units, but the current node arsenal has really no real replacement for that in a way that could be fitting as to be used as super
Unit
units in a
ready.
mission.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you. This is actually an example of sort of map-specific units or edits.
Yeah, it's not native necessarily to the factions, but it's still inbuilt in that. It's really cool to have.
Yeah, in the multiplayer, this has been reworked. But it's still present here
Unit ready.
because the mission was designed around it.
Sure. I mean, I think there's also the ability to get those units from crates as well, right? In the multiplayer on occasion.
A lot of them, yeah. When they go out of commission, so to speak, they're removed from availability in the multiplayer. They'll still be available in
Insufficient
crates.
funds.
Such was the fate of Nod's previous epic unit, for example,
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Lost.
and the
Ravager.
microwave thing as well.
Unit
Okay,
ready.
we are getting destroyed by that.
We
What, the
were
attack wave
being
in the south?
destroyed by something.
Unit lost.
Oh, there's
Building.
the illuminator. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Hyper.
This is the new.
Unit lost. Unit ready.
Not epic unit. Yeah, it's plasma tank. We thought of, okay, the plasma technology in Tiberian Sun is already so miniaturized yet so powerful. Like, wouldn't it be logical if there was some precursor to that actually,
Yeah.
where they had to build a fully fledged vehicle to house the power and such needed for this kind of technology? So that's
Building.
where the illuminator comes from.
Unit ready.
Regarding Polish to Poles question or comment in DDA chat, we are in the process of giving the old special SSM a different look,
Ready.
a slightly different look, like a recolor or a model that looks like the SSM a bit, but like looks more dangerous or so.
Yeah, I do remember we discussed that. I think we just got a little sidetracked by the whole rework thing.
We had a lot of different things going on at the same time.
But yeah, that is actually one of our things we should plan to do. Because I think, is it used in another of your missions as well?
Actually, I cannot remember right now, but maybe.
Building.
I think so.
But yeah, I think it's a nice mission specifically to include in some cases.
Actually, by the way, Danku, if you want to stream some more TTA, I have a suggestion for you. There's a mission called the Toxic Diversion, which has a really unique design aspect in that it has a branching story, like it has multiple different endings, depending on player choices.
Yeah, it was awesome. I played through it on stream once before.
Oh, cool.
So I have that up on my YouTube, but I definitely plan to go back to it once I've gone through a couple of the other campaigns and try a different branching path. The branching path stuff was awesome.
Ready.
It's not something I've ever seen really done in a lot of these mods, so to speak. Like, I know in some of them you can like choose a mission path, and like based on whatever mission path you choose, the next one's slightly different. But like having the option to like, oh, maybe attack the civilians or maybe don't attack the civilians, and that directly impacting like what line you're going to is super cool.
Yeah, I've never seen that kind of in-game choice.
Yeah.
Branch the story that way in any RPG. I can't recall. I don't know if it's been done, but I can't recall seeing it anywhere. So
well, as the creator of the campaign, say that I felt a bit like bringing some role-playing game elements, to, like, you know, they often have this kind of in-game player choice that affects the endings and so on. So I wanted to do something like that in CNC.
I actually have. Oh, what? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad of how it worked out. I just have to apologize to Danku how you were led to the North Pass without your own choice, but blue Tiberium blowing up and killing the civilians.
Well, I figured like that was just
hopefully solve that out with the latest patch.
Sure. I mean, hey, it was still cool.
Okay, this is a lot of infantry.
This guy's got a lot of power.
Yeah, well, it also had a lot of obelisks before we brought them down.
This is true. We should probably capture one of these, maybe build off it.
Unit ready.
What were you saying, Tiberius, regarding the RPG?
Unit
Oh, I was just saying that the single-player mission concept that I want to look into actually has some, you could say, light RPG elements, or at least some in-game choice that affects
Primary building
the progression of the mission.
Building.
Ah,
Unit ready.
interesting.
Not quite as extensive as Toxic Diversion, but I hope it'll still be interesting.
Unit ready.
Yeah, I do think, I think doing it like I did in Toxic Diversion, it brings a lot more complexity to the mission and campaign, and so it can also go wrong. So keeping it simple might it's not a bad thing anyway. It might actually be better off that way.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. I must admit, I already started development and then scrapped it because it just wasn't how I wanted it.
Selected.
Look, there's an Illuminator killing your Exo.
Building.
I get it. It's fine, we can rebuild
Primary
it.
building selected.
But it was a
On
lead.
hold.
Wasn't it?
Terminated.
Yeah, you're right, Medi.
Yeah, I think this how we just died last time and how we are doing now, it shows that already very small things can make a pretty significant difference in these missions.
For sure.
Waiting order. Unit reporting. Affirmative.
And I think it might, well, some people have said that my missions, for example, they might feel impossible at first, but then when you figure out some individual things to do better, it might make a surprisingly big difference. And I mean, you can often fall into this like spiral of destruction where you lose one thing and that leads to losing another thing and so on, as you cannot harvest resources from some specific part of the map, for example. And if you do one thing right, you might get out of that spiral and actually be able to handle the attacks that at first might seem really overpowering.
For sure.
Yeah, honestly, because with the trigger system, it's really hard to make adaptive AI.
Yeah, it is really hard.
As you've played it a couple times, you really learn how it actually works, and I think that it's almost geared towards those second playthroughs, so that it's still challenging once you know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I guess you could say DTA is the Dark Souls of RTS. You just gotta bang your head against the wall enough times.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I try not to make it like that on easy and medium, but on hard, well, yeah, that's...
Yeah, I am talking about the hard mode right now.
Insert.
Also, well, you are not the first person to say that either. I think there was some chat about that once on CNC Mod Haven Discord server once, how DTA is the Dark Souls of CNC.
Oh,
That's
not surprised you though.
that's a nice medal on it where.
Yeah. Oh, Lexiel, I have made Mayday and a Bridge to Pew, and I have a co-op that is pretty much done. It just needs testing.
Construction complete.
Oh, and I helped with the mapping on the second Bunny Hunt mission, the co-op version.
Funny lockdown.
Bunny Luck Town. That's it. Yes.
Cancel.
Oh, that's really
Unit ready. Unit lost.
And I have an elite exo again. All is well.
There's a turret still there.
Unit ready.
I like how you can see the flashes of other players. It feels a bit strange when you click on something.
There's a stealth
Oh yeah,
generator still.
that's here.
Ah,
Unit ready.
Just like in the
Or
middle of their
things-
base.
It's always funny how our tanks just like drive around it completely.
yeah, a bit less than half an hour. GG.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, not
Oh
bad.
yeah.
Awesome.
Next
I
time.
actually
Congrats,
remember
Flame.
this being. What? Sorry.
I just said congrats Flame for having the most kills.
Yeah. Holy shit.
Yeah, for once it's not you.
Yeah, that'll teach him.
No, but I remember this being a lot longer, but maybe that's because I tested it on hard.
Yeah, well, when I originally played it, I think it took us over an hour to do it. It was pretty rough.
That
Yeah.
sounds about right.
Yeah. But we now have the knowledge.
I think it has taken me about 45 minutes to do on hard with some friends, I think.
Nice.
So yeah,
Nice.
it can be long if you, we were pretty fast now.
Sure.
I don't remember. Is Nuclear wins a 3 or 4 player?
It's 4 players, but well, the mission is so large that I'm a bit afraid of desync errors if we play it.
Oh,
So it might
yeah.
not be the most interesting one to watch.
Yeah, true.
It is the I would say it's the number one thing that's number one problem in Tiberians on multiplayer. It doesn't happen often in player versus player, but when playing with AIs, including co-op missions, these things tend to happen very often. Like I would say every fourth time we play, probably.
Interesting. I've never come across it when playing this online. But again, a lot of my missions tend to be like maximum an hour 10.
So what's the plan now?
I mean,
I've just answered Crape King on chat that you can
if you have
also
auto
play
save,
co-op missions with AI players. It's not recommended, but if you really cannot find a friend to play with, or you have two people and you want to play a mission with 3 players, you can start them with an AI player.
It's probably worth mentioning that you can also host from a save, right, and like continue where you left off if it did desync.
I think. Yeah. First of all, yeah, we do have an autosave system for the multiplayer. We've had that for a while, and that really helps with the desync issues.
Yeah, we have a demonstration video about it. We have actually made a very great job with it, I think.
Awesome.
But how about the anchoring? I think we did rebalance that after the rework, didn't we?
We actually haven't. Well, I did rebalance it, but we haven't tested it. But it's probably beatable on medium at least.
Yeah, I was thinking on medium it should be doable.
Yeah.
Just a suggestion, but to get some not play in as well, maybe.
Sure.
Yeah, Chainbreaker was Soviet, so playing the anchoring would, you would get a look at Nod gameplay.
Yeah,
which
just
would be nice.
The faction we touched most recently.
Yeah, show off the new units.
Yeah, freezing Desperate Grip, it would be an allied defense mission. But maybe we can do the anchoring. I think it's a pretty nice mission also, so we can do this and
A
Cool.
little bit of a hard start if I remember.
then check out if there's still time afterwards for a third mission.
Sure.
Yeah, sounds like a good plan.
Sounds good. 'Cause then we would have shut off Soviet, GDI, Nod, and if we've time,
Nobody cares
allies
about
would be
the
cool.
allies anybody.
What, sorry, Flame?
Nobody cares about the allies anyway. Just fill in generic, UN.
It's the placeholder faction. It's okay.
Exactly.
Make Enforcer win game.
Exactly.
And
Yeah,
that's
you got
not
enough-
actually
He
true.
did
but,
probably get demonstrated as an opponent previously, at least, if nothing else.
Yeah,
Yeah, and we saw
Oh,
plenty of enforcers in that mission. So
yeah,
that's
those
the only
multiple
cool bit.
enforcers, man. Ow.
Are those enforcers any good when they're portable mode? Like they don't seem to do heavy damage unless they're deployed, right?
They do. I think do they do the same or nearly the same damage when deployed and mobile?
Nice.
So no, the deploy is more to get the they get a bit more health, but they also get a larger footprint basically, which affects weapons with AOE. I'm not gonna go too much into that, but some weapons will hurt them more, but they also get more health. So it's mainly something you do for the mobile barracks
Gotcha.
functionality, especially because now that we have the mechanics from Red Alert 1, you can actually spawn a mechanic from the Enforcer and have that mechanic repair the Enforcer.
Someone did this to me in my first PvP game on here. I was not happy. that was a rough time, but yeah.
That is a mean tactic.
Yeah. I think it was Mehdi as well. I'm not too sure. I think it was him. But
I've
yeah.
also seen people queue up at Tanya and then
Just go
pause
into
it just before she finishes, deploying the Enforcer and then spawning her from that and just wrecking the enemy base.
Oh, it's so
You
mean.
thought that this was an enforcer, but this is actually a very expensive APC.
Word it though, right? Flex points.
Yeah. You can do some fun stuff with that. Also, just flooding the area with rocket troopers can that alone can be devastating. Especially if the enemy thinks he's gonna take it down because of its lack of anti-air, you can get a nasty surprise if it deploys.
Yeah, while here I'll use a second to demonstrate the chatbox commands in the client. There's some hidden functionality that we didn't find space for in the UI. So, well, as the game host, you can hide the map list to get a bigger chat box if you want to. Then you can show it. You can also just type a slash to get this help window that lists the different commands. There's some advanced stuff, but probably the most useful things for regular players are well, there's save options and load options. If you toggle some of the game options here, you can use those commands to save it and load it as a preset later. And then sometimes if you feel like randomizing stuff like teams, but find it hard to decide who to pair with from, you can there's this dice roll command, for example.
Nice.
So, yeah, are you guys ready for this mission?
Yeah, why did you roll a die?
Why not?
Just to show it,
Just
I
to
think.
show it. Yeah. That's cool. It's nice that there are those like little features in the chat. Yeah, I'm ready.
I could say I've had a lot of fun with this event. For I hope everyone else has.
Yeah, I've loved it. It's been great. It's really cool seeing the devs actually playing, because I feel like a lot of the time you guys just get to put in all the hard work and don't actually get to enjoy what you do, which is kind of
Yeah, I would often like to play DTA more, but I just don't have the time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Unit report. Affirmative. Waiting orders. Waiting orders.
Ouch.
So do we just destroy their base?
Yeah.
Unit lost.
That easy.
If
Just
you
destroy.
don't destroy it quickly enough, they will actually start building up a whole base and forces and everything, and then stuff can get a lot harder after at that point.
I've lost my entire army.
Unit lost.
Well, I got their conyard.
But yeah, honestly, I think that's also what kept us passionate about developing the game for so many years, especially some of the original devs, is that we love to play the game. So we always want to make it better, as much for our own sake as for the fans.
Oh my!
Okay, so we
Just
need
all
to
my infantry
be.
with the flame tank.
Okay, yeah, we need to be a bit faster. You might flame, for example. It might be better if you just kill the defense and then just drive to the HET, so you get to help us before you are dead. Because now it is very hard to take them down when they can just spam infantry from that barracks.
Shoot. Oh well.
No mission is failure.
It's alright, second time's the charm.
Yeah.
Worked out well last time, right?
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, Flippy puts it well. Well, Rip.
Well, rip. All right, Flippy.
Waiting orders. Moving out. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Unit. Waiting orders. Moving out.
So here I just use the record infantry to counter some mammoth things. And then
Unit
try to also
lost.
use them for taking out the guard towers.
Unit lost.
Danku, stick your flame tanks on the rocket launchers.
Lost.
Yeah.
And then I can use these recon units to flank from here, taking out those infantry and attacking their construction yard.
Unit lost.
Yeah, Danku, use the flame tanks because they do
Unit
well against
lost.
structures.
Take out the barracks.
Unit lost.
I'm on it.
Unit lost. Unit
Nice,
lost.
we got it. Okay, we got MCVs because we got the base down.
Got a whole tank to spare, baby.
Where am I supposed to set a base? Right where I start? Next to the gem?
Try to find some place with resources. Down, yeah.
I think, Danku, if you stab the gold in the middle,
Yeah. Sounds good.
yeah.
Try going to east. Oh, I just died.
Are you guys?
What?
Building.
What happened?
Yeah, I didn't expect those for medium tanks.
Oh my.
Construction.
Okay, we'll
They got my
restart.
MCV.
Unit lost.
Okay, got a watch out for that.
Terminated.
I think I'll also set up my base in center, so there's a blue Tiberium field in south. I'll go for that, and you can take the ore.
Cool.
After I have some stuff up, I'll probably move to the east, but not right away.
Guys, this is a historical moment. Rampa was the first to die.
And we have it on tape.
Yeah. What luck.
Perfect.
They came from the shroud. That honestly sounds like a mission name. Or a CNC themed horror movie. They came from the shroud. The trailer, you'll just hear someone screaming, I did! God!
Unit waiting orders. Unit reporting. Unit acknowledged. Affirmative. Waiting orders.
Unit lost. Unit lost. Unit lost. Reinforcements have arrived.
Wait, I got my MCV already. I haven't even killed anything.
Unit lost.
A win's a win.
Unit
I decided.
No, like,
Yeah.
neither the MCV or the barracks were dead. I got it.
Dude, don't let it be a fault of that.
I mean, I'm just saying.
I'm not
It's
saying
weird.
Rampa got annoyed about losing and is hacking the AI, but
Well, we got it destroyed anyway, so
New construction
not sure
options.
if we do.
Building. Construction complete.
Yeah, this went quite a bit smoother than last time.
Moving out.
That's an understatement.
Construction complete.
don't worry,
New
there's still time.
construction Options. Building.
Kicked it, man.
Terminated.
You want us to lose? I love rocket infantry.
Construction complete. New construction options.
Yeah, they can be,
Ready. Building.
I think people tend to underestimate them really, but their damage to cost ratio is actually kind of nuts when you think about it.
Yeah, we have paid special attention to make them really strong and useful in GTA, like a real part of the meta alongside for countering tanks. So it's not like Red Alert 1 where it's a poor tank spam game. GTA is actually surprisingly,
New
it's very
construction
difficult to
options.
spam tanks in GTA, I think.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say that works against the competent opponent
Unit.
or the AI.
Construction complete.
Yeah, I guess the best way to do it is just go pick 10 and get the best units and just go, right?
No, that can really backfire
Okay.
hard.
Spoken
that's
like
the
a man
thing
who
I
is-
like
oh,
about-
Construction
yeah.
complete.
That's the thing I like about GTA, and it's a goal of ours, that there's no one formula for winning. You really have to read your opponent and react to what he's doing, because if he's tech rushing and you're being passive, then yeah, that might bite you in the ass. But if he's tech rushing and you rush him, you're gonna die.
Does that rushing in GTA typically involves using more units than just per tank spam?
Yeah, that's that too.
So you use infantry, light vehicles, Humvees, buggies, then tanks, and so like mixed armies in DTA tend to be much more effective than just core tank spam armies.
Yeah, we really wanted to move away from especially red alerts, focus on just tank spam.
Yeah, you want more of the strategy on it too.
Yeah, well, it is a strategy game, so...
Yeah. No, I fully agree. I'm in
No,
trouble here.
No, I'm just saying that I feel sometimes like RTS games really don't pay enough attention to promoting good unit compositions.
Sure, and rewarding players for using it, right?
Yeah, I think, what might be a slight issue for the RTS genre in general is that, well, following the, like StarCraft, is often more about speed than actual strategy, but we try to balance that in DDA so that you need both.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way.
Building.
Like, APM alone isn't gonna win with the game.
Building.
Oh, unless you're
Rampa actually micros perfectly and has perfect unit composition. Rampa is a human. He's Cabal in disguise. We all know that.
yeah.
You must want to sell off that airstrip.
Unit lost. Unit ready. Unit ready.
What's the hotkey for sell?
I have it customized, I cannot remember the default name.
Same.
I don't know.
Cool. Don't worry.
I always just sell button because I don't know what it is. CP is power.
Construction complete. New construction options.
And yeah, anyway.
It might be L or K, I think.
Reporting, you got it.
Oh.
Waiting where you got it. Ready and wait out. Ready and wait on it.
Your harvester is under attack. Your harvester is under attack. Your harvester is under attack. Your harvester is under attack.
Watch out, Flame.
Oh, that's
Oh man.
Building.
And I'm getting rushed as well, but I might be able to survive
New
it.
construction options.
They might need some help, I think.
Building.
are the heavy raiders worth building?
Building.
Not against mammoth
Oh,
things. Bikes are better against those, and defenses, of course.
Building.
Flame, you still have your flame tanks here.
Construction
Yeah,
complete.
thanks.
Flame tanks.
Not
Should be able to deal with these guys on.
insufficient funds. Building. Building.
Got it.
So yeah, here's how a tank crash dies in DTA. That doesn't have mixed unit compositions.
Building.
In this case, I used SSMs to kite them, and then rocket infantry and a couple of obelisks to rest. I think I'll actually get a spare MCV and expand to the east, unless Danku, you would like to do it yourself.
I don't really have the eco to record it, so if you want to do it, I'll throw a ref down on your MCV as well.
Alright.
That sounds good. AKA, you do the hard work and I'll stick a ref down.
No, that's co-op.
On hold. Cancel. Building.
Roger.
Unit ready. Cancel.
Be careful of sending your troops.
On hold.
I'm sure you already know that, but I just saw your infantry running straight towards.
We need to start building AA.
Unit ready.
And cap.
Look at the text triggers.
Building. On hold. Building.
Okay, Danku, I have my MCU set up too.
On hold. Building. Cancel.
Unit reporting. Waiting moving out. Waiting boarding. Waiting acknowledged. Vehicle report.
Right, you seem to have established pretty stable ecos at this point. Maybe except Danku.
Warning, GDI is sending a large aircraft force towards you. That's probably fine.
It's fine.
Construction complete.
Go around there.
Flame, I think maybe you should share some of that double tip field with Danku.
Building.
I can also share mine, yeah.
Yeah,
I just
there we
grabbed
go.
some of it.
Construction complete. Building.
We are all capable.
Building.
Clock.
Construction complete.
Yeah, we are one. We are Cabal.
Building.
Okay, here it comes.
Under attack. Unit ready. Unable to comply. Building in progress. Your harvester is
Ow.
under attack.
Was lots of
Your harvester is under attack.
crap.
Construction
Did you lose
complete.
something?
I lost a power plant.
Not bad.
Building.
Maddie, really, the rest of us are not nearly as
Construction complete.
beastly as Rampa.
Unit ready. Building. Unit
Can you beat him, Flame?
Construction complete. Building.
Totally irrelevant to the discussion.
Building. Unit ready.
Waiting orders. Waiting orders. Moving out.
Need like 2 flame tanks to just take out mini.
Unit
Love it.
ready. Building.
So here we have Danku's Heavy Raider moving out incendiary ammunition of the enemy.
Vehicle report. Vehicle reporting.
And here is the Cyborg commando prototype, basically.
I think it's
Equipped with a chemical rifle.
Ripped that one bazooka.
Reporting.
Yeah, so one unique thing about the Heavy Raider is that it has a high health, but actually a light armor type. So
Moving out.
it takes a bit of a different approach to
Building.
killing it, really. Effectively killing it anyways.
Construction complete.
As a nod player, is the mobile repair thing worth it?
Power. Unit ready.
Yes, I'd say so.
I think it's situational. I do not usually build it unless there's some kind of a special situation, like
Construction complete.
I'm sieging something with artillery and expecting it to be relatively still for a long time. But it might also just be my playstyle.
I think maybe it's good
I-
alongside like the Illuminator, maybe keep them paired.
Yeah, I was actually about to say I like to hit and run with the Illuminator and then retreat to a mobile repair vehicle if I'm far from my base. That works well in my opinion.
Nice.
Construction complete.
But just the fact that it repairs your units for free when you have it can also pay off if you're sort of really spamming those big light tank blocks.
Yeah. It repairs for free, right? Or do you pay for it?
Yeah. No, it repairs for free. That's sort of a big selling point.
It's for free, but it is a bit costly in itself.
Yeah.
Sure.
Unit. Yes, sir.
Oh yeah. Fun thing to do. load up the new chem troopers with into a stealth APC, put it into the middle of the enemy unit formation, and just unload them and watch the chaos.
Yeah, that was
Your
pretty
It's
fun.
fun. I
harvester is
actually
under
lost a
attack.
bunch of tanks
Your
when
harvester
Hamper
is under
did it
attack.
against me previously in PvP.
Yeah, I saw that. That was
It was pretty amazing actually.
yeah, that was awesome.
It got me scared for a bit.
Reporting out. Moving out.
Caught me off guard.
Yeah, got me hoping for a bit. I mean, yeah, scared.
Reporting. Yes, acknowledged. Moving out. Unit reporting.
The Illuminator also does slight bonus damage to targets that are close to it, so it is actually beneficial to move it as close to an enemy as possible sometimes.
Cool
If it's
protection.
not too dangerous.
Unit ready.
Waiting orders. Moving out. Reporting.
Our base is under attack.
Flame, you can stop the air assaults by taking down her air base.
What does the hijack do?
He hijacked vehicles.
Cool. I thought so, but I figured it out.
Unit
Yeah,
ready.
no, fair enough. But yeah, he can hijack pretty much any vehicle.
Unit
He's
ready.
with the Soviets being so slow, sometimes you can actually infiltrate their formation with the stealth APC and get the hijacker directly to that behemoth. That can really turn the tide.
I just once lost a PvP game due to that I my behemoth hijacked.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I lost to Humberdew once because of that.
Building.
Yeah. Hamperu is known as the cheese master in the PTA community.
Yeah, he's really just the most sneaky bastard you will
Unit
ever
ready.
encounter. If you ever play Humberdew, watch your back.
Select target. Unit
Where are all our harvesters actually? I guess I'll move all my harvesting operations to the east.
unit ready.
Waiting orders. Moving out.
Insufficient funds. Unit ready.
So,
Vehicle reporting. Affirmative.
you need help with
Yes, sir.
the airbase flame?
Moving out.
I mean, if you want to.
Watch
but
out, the
I'll
AI
deal with-
likely has a sensor array
Yes,
somewhere.
sir.
Yeah.
Moving out. Vehicle reporting.
Doesn't seem like he has one here though.
Vehicle reporting.
Or what?
Unit ready.
Maybe he's out of power? Like the ATT didn't fire, but the watchtowers did, so I
Might have
guess
been
actually-
just
Where
out
you're-
of range of the AGT. Not sure.
Nuclear weapon launched.
You were right next to it. It should have.
Vehicle reporting.
Sure.
Unit ready.
I actually cannot repair your stealth ABC.
Vehicle yes.
Unit
Not even if you put it into dark mode.
If I force fire the ground, maybe.
Yeah, that force firing helps.
Reporting.
Forceful repairs.
Repair with meaning.
You will live, damn it.
Reporting. Affirmative.
Yeah, the Illuminator can actually one-shot medium tanks if you move close enough.
Oh wow.
Unit moving out. Unit moving out. Moving out. Yes. Affirmative.
nuclear weapon launched.
That's better.
Will you Danku attack through the center?
I
Sure.
think he's wearing down the GDIs there, the Illuminator.
I'll push them in.
So yeah, this is also a nice thing to do with the Illuminator because it's fairly fast but also fairly sturdy. So you can sort of draw the enemy, especially the AI, into sort of a kill zone
Unit
with it.
ready.
I also love doing that with Volkov as the Soviets.
Unit
Yeah.
ready.
Reporting. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Waiting orders.
Which has even worked on players. I think I've killed Craftsman quite a few times like that.
Unit lost. Unit ready. Unit
Rampant, do you
lost.
remember that meme in League of Legends, don't chase Sin?
Unit ready.
Kind of,
Unit
yeah.
lost.
Yeah, here it's don't chase Volkov.
Vehicle reporting.
That could be Yeah, that's the thing. Definitely.
Unit lost. Your harvester is under attack.
Ooh, Danku, by the way, we gotta show you. So, Flame is our 3D artist, and also happens to have a 3D printer, and actually made a little model, physical model of the Illuminator. Which
On the
was
way.
Harvester is under attack.
fun, isn't I think?
Unit
Thinking
lost.
of if we hold a PvP tournament at some point, we might actually be able to. Well, Flame might be able to ship it out for as a reward for the winner.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
talked
I was-
about having it as a prize, like painting it and all, and
Yeah, we were thinking of holding a tournament this day, but we decided that just a regular game night might be better for this instance.
Sure, sure. Like you were saying, like
Yeah.
it's not really the PvP side of the stuff that makes the game shine. I guess it's more the
Yeah.
co-op kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
I'm sure you can come up with some idea for it.
Especially in PDA, because we have focused a lot on these co-op missions. It's one of our
Unit lost.
key points in multiplayer, I think.
I do think the PvP has a lot to say balance-wise, though, and is very, very enjoyable and one of the more balanced of the mods. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of mods fall into a bit of a pitfall of getting excited with adding a bunch of new units, but they don't really give each individual units the time and care to fully balance them. So they're a lot of fun to play, but if you get down into the competitive side, it maybe
Yeah.
falls apart a little.
Unit ready.
Yeah,
Not all,
well,
but some.
as we know, the official Command and Conquer games have very
Unit
flawed
ready.
competitive balance as well. So it's
Yeah,
not like
absolutely.
we just while also taking of course account the PvP, it's not like we have neglected it in a way, but we also think about, well, we play a lot of games against the AI and think of how we can also make that aspect fun, and like Tiberius previously said, it is also a factor that we consider in game balance, that how do his units work against the AI, and
Unit ready.
we also try to, of course, improve the AI so that it can counter different units better, and so overall we probably focus more on the co-op aspect than most mods, while also trying to make the PvP as polished as possible. I think the polish in DTA is something that people have praised us for before. Like everything that we do, we try to make it perfect and pay a lot of attention to detail.
For sure. Definitely showed.
Which, I mean, I just want to point out, I am not trying to trash any other mods here at all. It's just a matter of like what you prioritize
Sure.
in development.
And again, like some of that also comes down to the maturity of the mod, right? Like you said, it's been around for 10-ish years, so of course they have a lot of fun with different areas.
Yeah, that's also a factor, of course. Like, we have some very experienced people here who've been here for all that time, so
Unit ready.
of course that's gonna factor into how polished the mod is.
They could Excel just die off.
Unit lost.
Kind of doing something, in case you're wondering. Kind of.
Kind of? Okay, yeah, nice.
Unit ready.
Let's just say that I don't think I'm gonna get any awards for most units.
Yeah.
Awards are over.
You just marry your heroic unit off.
Right.
that was a Age of Empires reference, by the way.
I have to say, I do really like the model for the Heavy Raider. It's the first time I've seen it properly. It's nice.
It has actually gotten a little bit of fan backlash because people feel like we went too literal with our, we took some design inspiration from the Tumbler, you know, the bad movie from the Christopher Nolan.
Sure. I mean, you
And
can
once
never,
people
you can never
realize,
satisfy everyone with it, Ellie. So
no, not at all. But
Yeah, we did not want to actually make a reference with it, but people noticed it. Sounds better than our entire stuff. Well, our stuff expected for the most part.
Lost.
Yeah.
Building. Unit ready. Unit ready. Unit lost.
I will kill my airbase.
Unit
Base area,
Nobody help.
come to you.
ready. Unit ready.
I got this. No, don't.
Building.
No.
Just want to kill Steel Flame now.
Insufficient funds.
Waiting order.
I'm bringing some air support of my own.
I don't want help.
You're gonna get it anyway.
You couldn't let him have it.
Yeah, for example, just now someone said in the Discord chat that what they enjoy the most is the PvP balance. So it's also about, like you said, you can't please everyone, but of course we'd like to try.
Reporting.
Construction
For sure.
Affirmative.
I'm personally very glad about this like platform base area that I made for this mission. While it's just a small thing that you get to clear at the end, I think it. Oops.
Look,
So
it's
Rambo,
not.
you're-
They
you're
know
not
what they
a
signed up
team
for.
Player, are you?
Come on.
Like,
construction options.
Steel Flames.
Building.
Just
Demons and kill Dankus.
But yeah, I think it gives a nice touch to the mission story. Like, it's an actually an able.
Wait, are we killing Rambo now?
Why not?
Sneak attack.
Not a good game without a little friendly fire.
Has to be done.
Terminated.
Yeah, GG.
GG.
So third time's the charm in this case.
Yeah. GG.
I do not understand how scoring works in this game.
Yeah.
I don't think West would understand how scoring works in this game.
Fair.
Yeah, there's we have some absurd screenshots. Well, at least I have somewhere where I might have had like 800 kills. Some other player has 400 kills, and they are above me in the score screen.
Checks out.
So it feels
It's
kind
really
of
just a
random.
random number generator.
So do we have it in us to try the allied one, or
Well,
I think
officially
we can
there's
make it in
still
time.
officially there's still 1 hour before the official game night begins, so we could probably do that one as well.
Yeah, I think you could.
sure? Why not?
And also, yeah, for all Fudgers, I'm not sure how well. We've been playing on medium so far, so that well, there's also easy co-op and hard co-op, and well, of course, easy is significantly easier, at least hopefully so. And hard is what you would well expect probably from reading our public feedback and so on from missions.
Do you mind if we take just a very short break so I can get breakfast?
No, not at all.
2 minutes or so.
As in, no, you're not
Yeah,
allowed to
sure.
get breakfast, of course.
Alright, be right back.
No worries.
Not at the moment, Mark J, because we try to stay consistent with the lore, so we haven't really found an explanation for that. Like, we haven't really found an excuse for GDI and the Allies to fight each other. That would seem odd to us, I think.
Yeah. Understandable.
Typically, it's easiest to throw out the Splinter faction excuse, but yeah, it can get a bit old, especially if there's no depth, to the story of the Splinter faction.
Yeah. Yeah, if you want to do that sort of thing, you have to really commit to it. At least in my opinion.
And I'm back.
Hey, welcome back. What are we having for breakfast? That's the real question.
Cereal.
Nice. Breakfast of champs.
Ah, yes. Breakfast at 4 p.m.
It's
The way-
9 for me.
Yeah, time.
Like 2 hours later than I usually eat breakfast.
Really? You poor thing.
Yeah.
We're
Well, it's 'cause
starving you here.
You crazy Europeans started your stream at 6 o'clock at my time.
Practically
There's actually been a
starving
lot
you.
of discussion on the feedback channel that I haven't read yet. It's very interesting.
It's one of those train and pole going at it things.
Wait, what?
I actually like the point that train station makes your regarding commandos. I often, if I feel I'm playing against a player that I'm even with, I often try to well, when I build a commando, I might not actually be really expecting to see for their base, but it's a way of applying pressure, like forcing the enemy to focus on their on my commando, and that might actually make them overcompensate for it building counters to the commando, and also it might take the focus of the enemy's micro to the commando, or I also do it with chrono tanks, like it might make the enemy overcompensate and pay too much attention to the single unit, which then weakens their overall micromanagement and allows me to win some actual important battle easier.
Yeah, same thing goes for the stealth tank and a lot of that stuff. You can
Yeah,
really...
and also aircraft, and sometimes I have also done these like fake attacks, like I might like take few bikes and bring them flank the enemy base with them, not actually expecting to deal any damage, but just so that they grab the attention of the enemy and distract them, and then I can perform an actual real attack with my main force somewhere else, and then I have an easier time winning the combat because the enemy is slightly panicked at the smaller side force.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that works well with like people don't use it a lot, but often with the Soviets, if you just, because they're so readily available, just build 1 or 2 yaks, and sometimes people actually panic because of the damage they do to buildings.
You can't beat a few yaks.
Guess we're
though.
starting.
What, sorry?
You can't beat a few yaks.
Well, those we really have tried hard to make useful, because they really weren't.
Timer started.
Hello.
For a second there, I thought I only got to
Ready and waiting.
Danku, I think you're gray.
Yeah.
Building. Our base is under attack. On hold. Building. Unit lost.
Paragraph here in the same tracks to cover.
Unit lost. Unit
Yeah,
lost.
I do wish we could have a playlist.
Fencing. On hold.
It would not be particularly difficult to implement in the client, but I haven't gotten around to it. There's just so much I wish. Well, I could probably clone myself 5 times and there would still be work for everyone in the
Silos.
Tiberians and
Construction.
They
client
do sound like Cabal.
development communities.
Building.
Yeah. Bit of a slip there, revealing himself. But yeah, there are a lot of nice to have out there.
Ready.
Construction complete. Unable to comply. Building in progress.
Can I make a clone of myself?
So here we just
One of
need
me.
to defend the Chronosphere war
Unit lost.
that slightly over an hour in-game time, practically in
Unit lost.
Real time playing at 60 frames per second roughly is well 1 real second is 4 in-game seconds, so it's actually slightly less than 20 minutes.
Unit ready.
Yeah, so you should have plenty of time for it, even with Detroit.
Actually, I made a pretty bad mistake here.
Oh, really? What did you do?
Didn't pay enough attention to what the AI is actually bringing
Unit
out.
ready.
Ah,
Construction complete. New construction option. Unit ready. Construction complete. Building.
thanks for just going at it.
Unit lost. Construction complete. Unit lost. Cannot deploy.
Yeah, I think that should be enough.
Unit lost.
There's a few more.
Unit lost. Building. Construction complete. Unit ready.
Ooh, an enforcer on
Building. Unit
Yeah,
ready.
you really like to bring that thing out early.
Oh, what else am I gonna do? Sit around.
Unit
doing anything.
ready.
I don't think those are your only two options, man.
For sure, it is.
Construction complete. New
Fair
construction options.
I think I'll interrupt this.
Unit lost. On hold.
Eventually are followed by.
Building.
Fine, that's a lot of drop troopers.
Construction complete.
Wait, I have an enforcer to do. Take that, Tiberius.
Building.
Right. Yeah.
My expansion here was a bit short.
Construction complete.
So, Flame, how are you gonna deal with all those
Unit
heavy
lost.
tanks?
Unit ready.
With the, Mercer, that's right.
Construction complete.
Oh, with the kind of rocket troopers, maybe?
I think we have lost this already.
Unit lost.
Yeah, sadly I gotta agree with you.
Lost. Unit
Yeah,
Is this medium?
Construction
Yeah.
complete.
Ouch.
Our base is
Hey,
under
Danku
attack.
has an enforcer out.
Unit lost.
Yeah, because it's
And then Rampart quits. I love how that
ready.
thing just
yeah, I gotta expand right away at the start.
Unit ready.
Yeah,
Unit ready.
just the timing was awesome.
Unit lost.
The fact that the heavy tank can shoot across the cliff at the chronosphere is kind of annoying. Just saying.
Heavy tank across the cliff.
Yeah,
Unit lost.
you're a little really
You across the... Yeah.
Unit lost.
So what are we up to different?
Yeah, train, but I also saw a few gats mixed in there and they were really low on eco, so the next wave would kill them. If not this one.
Rip indeed.
I tried to expand without really defending the expansions well enough. So that was just a series of failures for me.
That's okay. It makes you seem more human.
Yeah, it's got to keep up that appearance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Training.
Very well.
Unit ready. Building. Cancel. Unit ready.
Reporting very well.
Our base is
So
under
rocket
attack.
infantry are very useful against those heavy tank waves.
Construction complete. Unit ready. Building. Unit ready.
These airstrikes are visual.
Reporting.
Unit
Yeah,
ready.
are you sure you've dripped in enough
Reporting. Yes, sir.
aircraft
Unit
in the
ready.
beginning?
Could double them, I guess.
Unit ready.
Awaiting
Yeah.
orders.
That seems like the best idea.
Unit ready. Unit ready. New construction options. Building.
Reporting. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Unit ready. Unit ready. Construction complete. Silos needed. Building.
Okay, don't deploy them.
Construction complete. Building.
Another MCV? How many MCVs are you building?
Ready.
Many?
Construction complete.
Because I have that build speed after all.
Unit
Yeah, it's a shame
ready.
you can't make obelisks.
Yeah,
Unit ready.
maybe we should fix them.
Construction complete. Unit ready.
So what I'm referring to is we had a free-for-all with Rampa once where his economy got so big that he made 10 MCVs or something,
Unit ready.
and he started just crawling with obelisks back when he could do that.
Unit
So he
lost.
just expanded with obelisks and put them everywhere on the map. He didn't make units anymore. It was that was special evening.
I guess I'll actually get force one as well.
New construction options. Building. Unit ready.
Needs the speed switch.
Unit lost. Unable to comply. Building in progress. Unit
What is the
lost.
limit of the building production speed? 8 or 10?
Building.
It depends on the cost of the building you are
Unit
building.
lost.
So, the more expensive the building is, the more factories it takes to reach the maximum.
So the hard limit is 10. Okay. Thank you.
It might be 10, but I haven't
Unit
checked.
ready. Unit
Yeah, I don't
lost.
recall ever actually maxing out on a wheel.
Building. Unit lost.
Because for example in Red Alert and Tiberian Dan, the maximum hard limit you can go and speed up production is 8. 8 war factory, 8 NCV, 8 barrels.
Unit lost. Training.
Yeah, even here, the maximum depends on the cost of the object that you are building. So, for example, a heavy tank is maxed by less far factories than a mammoth tank.
Unit ready. Unit
I once
ready.
read a pro level guide on Red Alert where they specified the maximums for each
Unit lost.
vehicle that you can build, but I cannot remember them off the top of my head anymore.
Thank you. I think you need more
Unit
turrets.
Also, you cannot go move with tank destroyers, they cannot open fire at the same time.
Unit ready.
Yeah, true.
Unit lost.
The tank destroyer is actually
Construction complete.
sort of design-wise an interesting unit though, because it has heavy armor and more health than actually any of our other sort of backline units. So it sits somewhere in between being a fully fledged tank and being a fire support unit.
Unit lost.
Okay.
I might need help. At top right. Oh, top right.
Unit ready.
Right.
Construction complete.
Have you seen the Chrono, the Tesla Troopers
Building.
pitching in their walk animation?
Oh, yeah, I have seen that. I think it's when they're going straight south.
Insufficient funds.
Yeah. You don't
Unit
have
lost.
problems.
Construction complete.
Yeah.
Unit lost.
Yeah, I have noticed, but thanks for reminding me.
Oh no, oh no. The last of my...
Construction complete.
I'm down.
Building.
I have a feeling that this mission has been fixed in a while.
Yeah.
Unit lost. Building.
Yeah, the third nerf actually makes a huge difference for this mission. So
And
yeah,
the infantry buff will be I
Unit ready.
that too.
Building.
Those Tesla blobs, man. Or jockey blobs.
Unit lost.
Building a chronosphere doesn't give
Building.
practice.
Unit lost.
So we should probably save it.
Unit lost.
Maybe should be able to nuke for this mission.
Unit lost.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, when we have to defend the chronosphere, it feels a bit occupied.
Unit ready.
If you could build more of it.
Yeah.
I think that might get confusing too.
Unit lost. Cannot deploy. Unit
But
Okay,
we
so yeah.
protect this down the box, so I don't think we're gonna be doing this.
Unit lost.
Yeah, I don't think it's impossible, but it's definitely way harder than it should be.
yeah, this is medium.
Unit lost.
Yeah.
Unit lost.
Are there any other allied? I guess there's is it Chronostorm it's called? But that one's a little
There are
bit
no
off.
other 3-player ones, I think.
Oh right, Chronostorm is 2-player.
We could knock down
There's
the
freezing
difficulty
offensive.
if you want to just blast through it and show off the faction stuff. Or try it again on medium, what do you?
I could leave if you want to do the two-player one.
Maybe we could consider doing this one. So
Oh yeah, you could do that one. It's yeah, actually, that I think that's a good idea.
I just wonder if I'm playing it, then it might be hard to find a fitting difficulty level. I wonder if we can beat medium with Danku. We can give it a try at least.
Yeah, let's see. I'm just worried about because that first micro part, even on easy, it can actually be a little unforgiving.
We should have picked an European tunnel server. Oh well.
I'm sure there'll be no consequences.
So yeah, we'll have to take out the first turret, flame tower here, and also get one of us has to capture the power plant. So the other can get her engineer into a radar.
And be careful because once you kill a Soviet soldier, you start a timer on some reinforcements.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
But we still have to get them out of space, so. Could you capture the power plant? Actually, just take this one out first. Yeah, now. Go.
Ready?
Sell it.
Unit
Now.
lost.
Ready and wait.
Then we can do it like this. It would also be possible to destroy the other flame tower, but it's easier.
Reinforcements have arrived.
I think this is an interesting mission because of the difference in the players starting situation, basically.
Unit lost.
Yeah. I think so too.
So yeah, Danku, basically, you're in a bit less of a tight spot in the beginning, and
Ready and wait.
should help sort of free ramp from the blockade in front of you.
Wait, how did you keep your
Reconstruction options.
I want to keep it alive.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I think it hasn't died yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unit lost. Cannot deploy unit. Reconstruction options. Building. Construction complete. Cannot deploy unit.
Gotta keep that refinery alive for capture. That was that you thought.
Reconstruction options. Training.
This is actually one of my
See, this
first
is where the-
co-ops.
Unit lost.
Yeah, we'll hold close right. And yeah, this is where the threat level gets annoying.
Unit lost. Unit lost.
You wait until the
Structure captured.
Oh, thank you. There's
Building.
a V2 behind your artillery.
Reporting. Waiting. Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Reporting. Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Unit, yes, sir. Affirmative. Waiting. Affirmative.
you make this look so easy, right?
Unable to comply. Building in progress.
On hard mode, for there's more enemy units I can use. It's usually like I can clear this space alone about 50% of the time, but in medium it seems very easy.
Building. Cancel.
Hey, I don't play this on hard ever. Shut up.
I don't blame you.
I have actually tried to clear this on hard with Danilin. We could get on that.
Unit ready.
I could use a service key, but
Unit ready.
I
Building.
guess I'll use these healthy ones to clear out these weak ones.
Unit ready. Unit lost. Unit ready. Construction complete.
You don't need to go in with your light tank, thank you. The artillery does outrange.
Unit lost.
Vehicle affirmative.
Generally, I'd say in this mission you want to utilize the range of your artillery.
Building.
Yeah, and I might actually need help soon. Yes, right.
I'd recommend getting get a line of turrets in the bottom of your base, thank you, because Ramp is pretty much covering you to the other side, so
Construction complete. Unit ready.
your units you should focus on helping him.
Building. Reinforcements have arrived. Construction complete. Cannot deploy here. Unit lost.
Reporting. Ready and waiting. Reporting.
Hey, Danilin's here. Hey, man.
Agreed. Yes, sir.
He also doesn't have the right to speak here. But hi, anyway.
It sounds so
Unable to
harsh.
comply.
Yeah, Danilin's one of our soldiers and a friend of Ramp.
I know you're my friend, but don't speak.
Waiting orders. Agreed.
Unit lost. Unit lost. Construction complete. Building.
Waiting orders. Affirmative. Affirmative. Waiting
Might actually not need his weapon factory
Unit
yet.
ready.
Reporting. Acknowledged.
I'd rather spend it in turrets and
Construction
rocket
complete.
infantry.
Building.
Wait, you still?
Affirmative. Affirmative.
How do you
Waiting orders.
do this?
Vehicle reporting.
Do what?
Construction complete.
Break through that entire thing without a
Unit
weapons
ready.
factory.
Building.
Affirmative.
I didn't really have a defensive line, so I figured I need that more than mobility. That's it. Thanks for bring.
On hold. Construction complete. On hold.
Waiting orders.
Unit ready. Building. On hold.
Scouts here.
Building.
Reporting. Acknowledged.
If any of the Fudgers does not know crewing movement, then this well, it's a very useful feature. You can hold crew while ordering units around, and
Building.
you can basically use it like a quick waypoint path, but and it well, it also allows tanks to move and shoot at the same time. Very important skill to master if you want to actually do well in difficult missions and especially against other unit players.
Yeah, the mission A Bridge Too Few actually keeps the queue moving a bit, so if you're new to the game, that would be a good mission to start with, I would say.
Vehicle report, yes sir. Awaiting orders.
After a tutorial, of course.
Of course.
It could be interesting to make more like
Right, sir.
a tutorial mission that simply focuses on teaching different advanced gameplay aspects.
That was the intention with the Bridge Too Few.
Yeah, I am a fair.
Acknowledge.
And while it teaches a couple of them, well, it is still like a mission, a regular mission.
Yeah,
Just concepts. I think.
yeah. I thought more advanced players would get bored with just the tutorials.
Unit ready.
Plus, I think you have to put somewhat of a challenge for these players to sort of see the benefit of, especially queue moving.
Unit ready.
This mission is pretty chill on medium.
Yeah.
Yeah, once you get past that.
You say that like it's such a terrible thing. That's like, yeah,
That's,
this is actually maintainable, and I don't have to have 200 APM for like.
Yeah. Remember that's a travesty.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Okay, there's
Ready and waiting.
Okay, now here it comes, the exciting part.
Unit lost.
Yes sir. Agreed.
It's never a good thing when Rampastring says that.
Yeah.
Reporting. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building.
Yes sir. Of course.
Unit lost.
Oh, there's welcome.
Yeah, Danku bot 2000 is doing well so far.
Unit lost.
Yeah, he's just not being very useful, but
On hold. Building. Construction complete.
Ready and waiting. At once. Reporting. Reporting. Unit reporting.
Prepare.
I'll try to level these ones up to elite.
Yes sir.
Construction complete.
So I think it's kind of a mandatory question for the devs on what their favorite faction in the game currently is.
Mine used to be allies, but I don't think I currently really have a favorite faction. I enjoy playing Nard for their speedy early game.
For sure.
Soviets. Best.
Said in hushed tones.
I also like how Soviet has a different kind of style of micromanagement that they require compared to other factions. Like their micromanagement, it's less fast-paced but more formation-based. So in fights you want your units to have a good formation, and that's the most important thing in their micromanagement.
Honestly, I just like Volkov.
Volkov is pretty OP.
He is a lot of fun. I think I'd have a hard time picking between Nod and the Soviets. I'd probably go Nod after the rework.
Allies used to be my favorite faction in the previous version, but well, since then we have done some changes which, well, I largely feel that I would enjoy them more if the Chrono Tank was better.
Yeah, it is in a little bit of an off spot right now.
Yeah, previously it was more useful in general, but it was probably a bit OP and also a bit clunky to use, so we basically, I feel that we swapped out its competitive balance for ease of use to newer players.
I wouldn't say we swapped out the balance, because I found it a lot more OP previously than you did.
Probably, but we could have still balanced it, well, weakened it within the way it used to work, but it was clunky to use for new players, so that's why we ditched it for the subterranean movement mechanism.
I do think we'd be able to make it more useful now as well, just not maybe get it into a perfect spot.
Yeah,
without...
but what I meant was that with the previous system it would have been possible to make it into a more perfect state, I think, but aside from the clunkiness, which is a good reason, I'm not saying that it's a bad reason to change it, but it is still different from how it used to work.
I'd have to disagree, honestly, just because I think that instant teleport could be problematic, at least unless we did very extensive rebalancing. But yeah, I do generally think this was worth it, but we could maybe look at... I think we talked about some health buffs for it.
If I could, I would probably implement Red Art Fan style teleporting, so instant, but with a cooldown.
Yeah.
Also, these missile subs deal a ton of damage.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess, Danku, you're catching a live developer discussion right now.
Sure. It's that's how it's done in the real world. It's why it's always interesting to see how like these final decisions get made and like the importance of actually game testing and play testing these things, right?
Yeah, we really have to just test our asses off sometimes. Especially with the big reworks, like you're always afraid that there's something you're not gonna catch.
Yeah, yeah, and of course there's always going to be something. Like it's just inevitable, and that's part of the fun of continued development, right?
Yeah, it can be, but it can also be a little like,
Yep.
dang it, we put so much time into testing it, still like if it's something big, you get a little annoyed. I feel like
Yeah.
the disc launcher was. It turned out if you masked them in team games, they could be very, very OP, and we had mostly been able to test them in.
Oh, I actually found a new bug.
Oh, that's nice. What
if I build and place down a chronosphere, nothing happens. I wonder if Bida is watching.
I think he is, yeah.
I don't know whether it's specific to this mission or is it a general thing, but yeah, okay, there's a chronosphere that's invisible, it seems. But if I deploy another one...
Yes, sir. Waiting knowledge.
Okay.
I've never seen that before.
No, neither have I. Last I played multiplayer, it worked fine. Interesting. Yeah.
I also do not get super weapon.
Unit lost. Unit lost. Building. Unit lost. Unit lost. Unit
Yeah, train, it could be exploited for
unit lost.
Friendly fire.
friendly fire and making enemy artillery Mr. Enemy with fuse, for example, waste their missiles on nothing. And yeah, it was too exploitable, that's why I would bring it back with a cooldown if we bring the instant teleports back.
Yeah. Yeah, another problem, especially with the behemoth, like you could really make a behemoth kill its own base.
Also, it seemed way too suicidal for allied. Like,
Yeah,
just like popping it
the-
into the back of an enemy base, knowing that it's going to get killed because it can't teleport back out once it's been deployed.
that did feel a little not doctrinish, yeah.
Yeah, not or Soviet. not.
Well, that's how it was in the first Red Alert as well. So
That could re-teleport just
Oh.
with the cooldown. I think
Yeah.
the problem with the previous one we had was that it could not teleport again at all.
yeah, after switching to combat mode, yeah, that's true.
So it did feel somewhat like kamikaze tactics sometimes. It was often used like that.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically the only way I used it.
Yeah,
And it was really devastating sometimes.
If we had stuck to a mechanism, I would have written a patch to prevent you from teleporting it directly inside enemy buildings with force fire, but we scrapped it, so I never had to try the hack.
Unit ready. Unit lost.
Medi, there was a grey AI, it just wasn't very prevalent.
It was used for pre-placed stuff like the radar facility over here.
Yeah,
Oh, the AI is actually attacking something.
Infantry, so helpful.
I think the Tiberian and AI system in general is a bit... I don't like how unscalable it is. I would probably redesign it from the ground up one day if I get time for it. Like, it cannot probably... It has a fixed delay between production of each team, and it does not probably scale with the AI's economy.
Silence enabled.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's it.
and there we go.
Woo!
Yeah, that was freezing offensive from medium.
Nice.
Yeah, I do think this mission is has good difficulty scaling. It's
It was yeah, the start of it was a little bit tricky, but once you kind of get your footing established, it seemed to be okay. But yeah, that was awesome. So we got to see like GDI co-op mission, the Nod co-op mission, Soviet co-op mission, the Ally co-op mission, which is great. So we've seen all that. We were able to go through the Soviet mission this morning, which was awesome. Thanks again for that, Rampa. It was super fun to see that in action. I look forward to trying to replicate it. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Are there any remarks or anything the devs want to make before we kind of close this up and move into taking a break before game night?
Yeah, thanks. It was a lot of fun to do these streams, play the co-ops, and you had some very interesting points to discuss while I was streaming Chainbreaker earlier.
Yeah, for sure.
So-
It was lots of fun. I think for everyone had a bit of crack, which is good.
Yeah, I hope the people just watching and listening have had a great time as well,
Yeah,
and asking
sure.
questions and discussing, and so
Definitely.
on.
yeah, same here, and I hope some will even consider joining us on CNCnet.
Yeah, we'll start our official game night in 20 minutes.
Sounds.
We'll have to see after playing it this much already. I'm not sure for how long I will be there, but I will be there for at least a few games. And
Awesome.
Yeah, sadly, I don't think I'll be able to join the game night itself. But this was really great, and I really enjoyed hanging out with you, Danku, and answering questions. This was
Yeah.
nice.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We'll have to do it again sometime, just to play some community games or something, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
loved it.
But yeah, for now, I'm going to take down my stream and stuff now and make sure that the lightning didn't do any permanent damage to the house. And make sure
Yeah.
everything's
Yeah,
fine.
let's hope not.
And yeah, I'll probably fire the stream back up in 20 minutes or so, and maybe stream just for a little bit community games, and we'll have other people in the community doing it. But yeah, thanks very much everyone for joining. It was great fun.
Yeah, let's have about 20-minute break and I think see you on CNC Net.
Get some coffee or something into your Rampa.
I don't like coffee, but I'll get something.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks very much everyone. Take care.
Wait, you're a programmer and you don't drink coffee?
That's illegal, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's legal because I drink tea or just straight sparkling water.
Nice.
I mean, I usually drink milk and eat chocolate chip cookies while programming or something like that. Well, it's my biggest addiction. Addictive
Well-
substance, cookies.
Well, I just
I-
remember seeing a lot of memes of like programmers or people who turn coffee into code.
Yeah,
only
it
issue-
tends to be pretty common.
Yeah.
The only issue I have with the Rampa combo of meal and choco cookie is the amount of sugar.
That's
And
the
when
best
you
part.
start, you can't stop.
You need the sugar. Sugar keeps you going.
No.
But yeah, awesome. Okay, I'm gonna be back in about 15 minutes. Cheers, guys.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks.
See you.